Okay, we're back live. I'm going to play Mark Bellion again and play the game, and I'm going to use my controller to do it. If I can't use the controller for everything, I'll just use the keyboard and mouse. Simple as that. I don't have to use the controller for everything.
Podcast is presented by Annex Wealth Management. There's a significant difference in financial advisors. Know the difference. Get started today. AnnexWealth.com.
Good afternoon, Milwaukee. This is the Mark Belling Late Afternoon Show on News Talk 1130 WYSN. It's kind of one of those weird days in which it's a holiday, but it's not a holiday. John was describing the rush hour is like earlier than normal today with I-94 westbound all backed up, people getting out of town. One of the things going on today is you've got all sorts of people leaving and all sorts of other people coming in, and then you've got Harley riders that are just driving around in a circle. They are neither coming nor going, they're just out there riding their motorcycles. Who did no particular place to go? Is that Chuck Berry? Well, that's kind of like what the Harley people are doing. They're just moving around. Plus, they're not just driving in a circle. One of the things that makes the Harley event, I don't know, I guess unique, is that it's all spread out all over the place. There are all of these different areas where events are occurring that get very, very large attendance, and they're aimed at people that are, you know, Harley riders. Of course, then you add to that the fact that all sorts of people who aren't Harley riders go to the same things. All these dealerships have events. There's a lot of activities at the Harley Museum, including a pretty good concert tonight with the record company. You've got a monster block party today and tomorrow on Brady Street. In fact, somebody sent me some photos. The thing just started at noon, and it's impressive. It's just impressive to see, really. Then there's like, I don't even know if it's official or not, but there's like a thing going on in the Tosa Village, which I managed to drive through and navigate without any problems today. As you know, I have a real mental block with regard to that. The big parade is this weekend, which is going to run down Wisconsin Avenue. It's going to go from about 45th Street to Veterans Park. Summerfest has an event Sunday afternoon. It's not connected to Harley, but it kind of plays in what with Harley being here. It's this barbecue thing. It's only an afternoon thing. I think it's like noon until 7. So you have that going on. Yeah, there's nothing tomorrow night at Veterans Park. What? Oh, there is a band playing there.
This works now. Okay.
I was going to mention that the biggest concert associated with the event is
if I don't have to type anything, it's easier. It's easy if I don't type anything.
Have you noticed that? Nobody wants to.
But if I have to type something, I have to, it's more difficult.
How many people are going to be calling the five-star forum the Bradley Center? Nobody's going to do that, are they? I don't know. I still hear somebody.
Right, so,
I will occasionally hear somebody say County Stadium. The slip of the tongue, County Stadium, for heaven's sakes. I mean, half the people listening to me weren't even around when we knocked that thing down. You know, Miller Park finally doesn't seem new. It took a long time for it to not seem new, but it doesn't seem new to you anymore, does it?
Okay, so
County Stadium, I mean, that's almost back there with Borchard Field in terms of
I don't know why I have
history. I think one of the things that makes you forget about something is if they knock it down. If it's still there, it sticks in your mind a bit. You know what I mean?
That's good.
The County Stadium got
right?
knocked out. No,
good.
I don't think somebody says they're going to County Stadium.
Most of it still works.
That's just a sign that they're an idiot.
This
right?
doesn't work though.
The other one that people having how long have we not called the PAC the PAC? Part of it is the PAC.
I got to program this.
The Marcus Center we don't have a short version for that.
Okay, so this is going to be quite boring. I'm going to have to program a lot of this stuff.
You know why there's people that want to call it the Marcus Center? Because it was confused with the Marcus Amphitheater, and you'd have to explain what you meant. Now that the Marcus Amphitheater isn't the Marcus Amphitheater, maybe we can call the PAC the Marcus Center.
Controls. Keymat.
Oh yeah, nobody wants the UW Milwaukee Panther Arena. People just say the arena. People just say the arena because, again, you got to explain that you're not referring to anything at UWM. I think Fiserv Forum, given the fact that hardly any, it's amazing how many people, I wrote a column about this, after Fiserv got the naming rights, did not know what Fiserv did. They've heard of Fiserv, but they have, is it a bank? What is that? So they will have no confusion at all because nobody. Try to find 5 people around here who could right now drive to Fiserv. Could you drive to Fiserv? Paul said no. See, that's my point. It's like the largest giant monster employer that we have in southeastern Wisconsin. That's almost been invisible, which is why I think they did the naming rights. Is Fiserv Fortune 500? They'd be close. I don't know. Do we care? Anyway, what I was going to say, probably the biggest event is the one Saturday night, and that is at the American Family Amphitheater, which I'll just end the confusion by saying the amphitheater at Summerfest. That's the Lady Antebellum Darius Rucker concert. It's weird, but the last time I saw Lady Antebellum, you know who opened for them? Darius Rucker. They must like be friends or something. I mean, that was when Darius, it was right at Darius Rucker. We have to explain who Darius Rucker is, so people who aren't into country music. Darius Rucker was Hootie of Hootie and the Blowfish. He decided that wasn't going anywhere anymore.
That's not true, but that's a common myth.
One of the very few African-American country singers. I think he's very good. Don't you? I like his stuff. Well, he's great. He's got that voice. It's just, he gets that voice kind of down to James Earl Jones level, if you know what I mean. So he's opening for Lady Antebellum, and that's a good show. Again, it's not technically part of Harley. A lot of these things aren't really part of Harley. They're just events that are held that are put on by individual people to take advantage of the fact that the Harley reunion is here. But I would think clearly a very, very large number of the people that are going to go to the Lady A show are people that are going to be wearing Harley stuff and either in from out of town or local Harley riders and so on. So just a lot of that stuff going on and scattered around all over the place. Unlike, you know, when they had the 100th reunion, so much of that was focused at Veterans Park and that big giant concert that everybody still remembers for the fact that 4/5 of the people walked out because they were so hacked off that Elton John was the headliner. I mean, that story will be remembered forever. When you bring up the Harley 100th reunion, that's the only thing anybody ever brings up. Yeah, they screwed it all up by bringing in Elton John. Nobody even remembers who else performed at that event. Do you remember who else performed at the event? Kid Rock. You're right. That's one. Who else? There are 2 others. ZZ Top was there. You're now 2. Get the 3rd. No, I'm not counting Elton John. Who's the other one? In fact, the order was Elton John, ZZ Top, going in reverse order. Elton John was the last. ZZ Top, Kid Rock, who opened? You've got almost all of them. Well, it is like a local band, but now in fact, Paul, it is a local band, but that's that's going to throw you way off. That's a good hint. It's a local band, but not in the way you think. No, not the, but see, I said not the way you think. It was the symphony. We played a little bit, and there's a guy that I know who's been bothering me ever since that thing, and obviously we know how long it's been since the 100th anniversary, since this is the 115th. If you can't figure out that it's not 15, that it's 15 years, you're lost. He keeps saying they should have had Steppenwolf close it off, and he won't stop telling me this. I just stop telling me this. You've been saying it for 15 years. Well, he's probably right. It probably would have been pretty. It's almost impossible to have done worse than Elton John. So yeah, Steppenwolf. They actually could have ended with ZZ Top, and people would have been perfectly fine with that. Plus, Boy George is right there with Elton John. Yeah, that's. Rod Stewart would have been a bomb also. Anything that sort of implied glam and, you know, kind of just that was not what Harley was in. They wanted some bleep kicking, something bleep kicking American, either country or rock that was like American kick your butt.
Damn it.
Anyway, we don't see any of those. Lady Antebellum is right in the wheelhouse. I mean, people hear that name if you're not familiar with the band. It's not a girl band. It's 3 people. The lead singer is a female, but Lady Antebellum, the name, they've explained that forever and ever, and Antebellum's a southern term. Anyway, there's just a lot going on with regard to Harley. There's other things that are happening as well. Paul said Tim McGraw, was Tim... That could be that it was Tim McGraw and not ZZ Top. One of the things that mixes me up a little bit is there was the 105th and the 95th and all of those too, and who was there and when. But I know Kid Rock was there because there were some people that were grousing about the fact that he was swearing the whole way. Paul said it was the Doobie Brothers, and then I might be on the 95th or the 105th then, yeah. Anyway, well, we know this. That proves our point. The only thing anybody remembers is that Elton John was there and everybody hated him. That's the one thing of which there's no argument about. Elton John ended it and everybody was hacked off. If we had any kind of media in this town, they would have gotten to the bottom of who the idiot was that made that decision. Wouldn't you still love to know? I still think it's somebody's wife. I don't know if Tearlake was running the company then. It was somebody's wife. It's like, who played Rush Limbaugh's wedding? Elton John. Why do you think that is? Rush's wife wanted him. It's somebody's wife. That's what it was. Is there a lesson in this? Don't listen to your wives? Or yeah, there's also that they turned it over to an event planning organization. Some of those people could be really clueless, too.
Oh, okay. Now I'm looking
at it. Like people come up with impressions of who Harley riders and so on. If you wanted to describe a Harley rider, what word would you come up with? Come up with some words. Come on, hurry up. We don't have all day. Come on. What? Describe Harley riders. What words would come to your mind? Give me some words. Tough. Old. I agree. I don't know about tough. Old. What else? Hard-edged. Yeah, but only, I would change that. Looks hard-edged. Tan and blonde. I will just say beards, a lot of hair, a fair number of tattoos, and vast majority of them in their actual lives are far more normal than you would think. I mean, you'd be blown away how many doctors and lawyers are riding those things and have the goofy long hair that they have to tie back a little bit in their regular actual lives. Yeah, Paul says his neighbors are business owners. It's remarkable. But for the people who are coming here, a lot of them who are coming from out of town, it takes a little bit of money and the ability to get time off. But I mean, I'm looking at these bikes and you can see the challenges Harley has as a company. I mean, I just been gawking, obviously, the whole time, trying to drive safely, but looking over at the people that are riding their motorcycle. 40 is young. They're almost all old. They're almost all old. Anyway, I wanted to go to the Lady Antebellum thing, but things aren't working out for me on that, so I can't do that. But that would have been a good one to see. But since I saw Lady Antebellum and Darius Rucker at the exact, that was probably 8 years ago. Paul says Hailstorm would be better. Well, I don't know who that is, and I know who Lady Antebellum is. Maybe if I knew who Hailstorm was, I would want to go to that. My point is I can't go to either. So I can't go. We have other things going on as well. The Brewer Cub Series starts Monday afternoon. Monday, of course, is Labor Day. The official opening of the Fiserv Forum is Tuesday with the concert there featuring the Killers and the Violent Femmes. Wow, it's a busy weekend, isn't it? And we've got the potential for more rain and more flash flood advisories that are in effect, especially for the northern part of the listening area. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I didn't even mention that because I was focusing on local. John was mentioning traffic westbound on 94. I think a portion of that is, I know several people that are going to the Badger game, the opening of the season, and that's a perfect storm kind of thing, too, by having it on a Friday night, which you normally don't have occur. But being the first game of the season and a season of high anticipation, it's the first game of a long weekend, so it's very easy for a lot of people to go. I think the students are just back on campus, so there's not a lot of competition with them for the tickets and the whole thing. And there's just a giant buzz about the whole Badger thing. And there's an anticipation they're going to have a very good year, but anticipation is just that. We'll see it. Their offense should be a lot better, and their defense should be a lot worse. And beyond that, I don't know that they're going to get much of a test tonight. I mean, they might kill Northwestern Kentucky, or they might struggle with them before putting them away. I don't think there's much of a chance that they would lose the game, but there's all of that. All right, let's get rolling on the program here. We have a follow-up on a story that was shared on yesterday's program, in which you have right now there's virtual accusations of lying going on here from the two sides. It's the story that I shared on yesterday's program about Ripon College banning some posters that the Young Americans for Freedom chapter on campus wanted to put up that said "Never Forget" in commemoration of 9/11. The college is adamantly denying it, and the Young Americans for Freedom Foundation is doubling down and saying they're telling the truth. I want to be fair to both sides here, and I finally did get to speak to somebody from Ripon College. The spokesperson, Melissa Anderson, said she apologized for not getting back to me yesterday, claimed she never got the message, whatever, okay. I did speak to her today. She just says it's not true. There's a meeting, nobody told them anything. The YAF on its website, the national YAF, is now weighing in, and the local YAF went onto its Facebook page saying, if you want to know what our position is, go to this, and it links to a story in which it says the administrators told them at a meeting that this was offensive, that it was insensitive to Muslim students, and that they shouldn't be doing it. So it's a fascinating case of two groups were at a meeting here, and there's completely different versions of what happened at that meeting. But before I do anything else, it's already 20 after 3. This show just runs away from me. In your wife's Lexus, you're going to the Harley thing. What a dork you are.
Okay.
I hope well, I know you don't have a Lexus, don't a Harley. You said your motorcycle, your neighbors have one. Well, slap yourself on the back of that. No, there's no good way to handle that. I mean, you know what? The only thing that would be worse is if you had a Honda motorcycle. They don't like that. They claim they're fine with it. They don't. What they don't like it is if you go into the Harley event with that. I mean, you have a right if you have a Honda to ride around on the freeway right now. I mean, this is still America. The liberals haven't banned us from traveling around. But I mean, what if you had a Honda and you wanted to go see this concert? You just don't take it to the event and park it with the Harleys. You just don't. Well, the other thing is, you just kind of, if you come back and some stuff is smashed, do you really? Whose fault is that? Yours or the guy that smashes it? Fault is the guy that said, I don't. You know the old saying when we were kids, he was asking for it? That is kind of asking for it, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, it's, all right, you know what it's like? It's like if you live where I live and you not only unlock your door, you put a sign on the door saying, hey, my door's not locked. That doesn't defend somebody who comes in and steals your stuff. On the other hand, you know, I actually have an idea on that. Imagine somebody just did that. Buy a house in the central city, say, hey, the door isn't locked. And then when somebody comes in, like, unleash 9 pit bulls on them. Well, I didn't say I didn't have a dog. I also didn't say there was anything in here. Watch, somebody will now do that. I'll get the blame. I said on yesterday's program that we were not going to have 6 winners in a row on the iHeartRadio Music Festival flyaway giveaway on my program. We had 5, and that yesterday would be the day that the streak stopped and we would not have a win. Even I can't stop this thing. Would you believe that we had a winner yesterday? That's 6 days in a row. To do it today would mean that we would have a winner from my program every day this week, plus we had one on Thursday and Friday of last week. I offer no comments on whether or not it's going to happen today, but this is the most remarkable streak, I would say, that any radio station's pulled off in our whole company in this history of national contests. And we've had 11 winners to my program now since the Las Vegas giveaway started. The contest, by the way, goes on for 2 more weeks, through next week and the week after that, although not, I believe it's not held on Monday, correct? Yeah, it's not held on Monday. Tuesday through Friday of next week, and then Monday through Friday of the following week. And of course, the concert is the 21st and 22nd in Las Vegas. So we've had 11 winners in my program, including 6 days in a row, 22 all told, all over WISN. So I'll give you a word at 4 o'clock or a little bit after, and then 5 o'clock or a little bit after. We'll see. Who knows what's going to happen with that. All right, let me get into the story that I was alluding to here. On yesterday's program, I reported claims by the Ripon College chapter of the Young Americans for Freedom that they were told by the college's bias review committee that they could not display posters on campus to commemorate the anniversary of the 9/11 terror attacks. The posters said the words, "Never forget," and they then had some images of the attacks and so on, 9/11 events. They said that they were told that Muslim students were offended and that the posters themselves were offensive. The story took off like wildfire, and while the local media, as usual, in its typical bias and not picking up on anything that might be interesting to someone right of center hasn't touched it, this story's all over a number of conservative national websites. A couple of very prominent conservative bloggers picked up on it, and once they pick up on it, other people see it, and other people see it, and then readers see things like regular old people, and they'll email them to other people like myself at other talk shows, and so on. I did speak today to Melissa Anderson, the spokesperson for Ripon College, and she said she was overwhelmed yesterday dealing with this firestorm. The story, is, she says, has spiraled out of control, and she says it's not true. She says the allegations that are being made here by the Young Americans for Freedom are not correct. That they were not told that they can't put up the posters. And she says she can show an email that would indicate that. Now, whether the email was sent out today as they backtrack or earlier in the week, I don't know. Anyway, we reported on the program yesterday that they were told that they couldn't put this up. The college, through its spokesperson today, scrambling now, is claiming that there was indeed a discussion about the posters, and the organization themselves discussed with the college alternatives to the posters, like putting up flags or doing other things, but that they were never told that they couldn't put up the posters. Now, it's possible Ripon College is telling the truth. It's also possible Ripon College is lying, because there's no way for me to report this story without saying that someone is lying, because the two sides are telling diametrically opposite stories. Today, on their Facebook page, the Ripon College chapter of Young Americans for Freedom, and I should point out that Young Americans for Freedom is not a radical conservative organization. It's a moderate, well, I shouldn't say moderate. It's a conservative organization, but it has been around for a long, long, long time. I mean, these are suit and tie conservatives. Young Americans for Freedom goes back to the days prior to Reagan. They do tours of the Reagan. There's a seminar and like a retreat every year at the Reagan Ranch. They hold events on college campuses. A lot of prominent American conservatives, older folks, are on their boards of directors. The organization is set up to provide an opportunity for younger people to meet and discuss and associate and share ideas with other conservatives. And we all know that on American college campuses, there aren't many opportunities for conservatives to get together, and that's where Young Americans for Freedom have come in. And there's these chapters that exist on campuses all over the United States. Well, the Ripon chapter's Facebook page today states that a lot of misinformation has been put out here, apparently referring to what the college is stating. And it says, if you want to know what happened, we refer you to two stories, and they link up to the two stories that state that they were told that they can't put up the posters. So on their Facebook page, Young Americans for Freedom is saying, our version of events is the one that is contained here, and the one that is contained here is the one that's being denied by the college administrators. Specifically, the Young Americans for Freedom group links to a story written on a website called The College Fix. The College Fix is a website that deals with college issues from a conservative point of view. The College Fix website says they've obtained a recording of the meeting. Well, that's pretty strong evidence to me. And they say that at the meeting, college administrators repeatedly criticized the posters. They quote one of the administrators as saying, there is nothing that this poster in particular adds to the conversation about 9/11 or about the politics of terrorism or about national security or responses to it that couldn't be easily done and more constructively without it. So they're claiming that that's one of the things that one of the administrators at Ripon said. Now, my response to that, without regard to whether or not they banned the poster or not, is who cares if you think it's constructive or not? What does that have to do with anything? For a student to be able to engage in speech in Ripon College, do they have to do something that some jackass administrator or some committee member thinks is constructive? This is the kind of environment that's going on in American campuses. As I say, Marquette is probably the worst in the state of Wisconsin in terms of repression. They tried to fire, they went to court and fought for years to fire a professor for daring to criticize them for the horribly obnoxious actions of a teaching assistant that Marquette was empowering to smack down a student to say that he can't even oppose gay marriage on campus. But this is the kind of trend that we are seeing. That people who run college campuses are acting as though they're in the Soviet Union in 1966 and they're operating a little pod and they can tell people what they can and can't say, what is helpful and what is not helpful. The story from the College Fix, which, again, the Young Americans for Freedom are saying, if you want to know what happened, read this. They quote, other comments by college administrators include, some things on the poster don't have anything to do with 9/11. I'm not sure I think that the Iran hostage issue was Islamic terrorism, because part of the poster shows some hostages taken in Iran. If you don't think that the Iran hostage issue was Islamic terrorism, I don't know what it possibly would have been. Fundamentalists got control of the government of Iran, which they still hold, and they took Americans hostage for a year. Then Islamic terrorism represents a small percentage of the terrorist attacks that happen in this country, and they don't represent the full gamut, etc. In other words, they're offering all these reasons why they disagree with what the poster states, none of which has anything to do with whether or not they ought to be able to put the poster up. Okay, fine, you don't agree with the poster. You're a lefty who doesn't like what the Young Americans for Freedom has to say about 9/11. Anyway, the story also goes on to say that Ripon College did not respond to requests for comments to the College Fix. That I believe. It took Ripon College a day and follow-ups by me today to get them to respond to me. Again, the spokesperson said she was overwhelmed. Well, then tell the president to get off his left-wing butt and start taking some calls. So, this story's out there. The Young Americans for Freedom were told that they can't put up the poster, they claim. There's stories that are reported by a number of websites that say that. Ripon College says all they did was have a meeting, that the campus bias review committee had a meeting. And they said that there may be more productive ways to be able to do this, but the college spokesperson says that if the student group wants to put the posters up, they are free to do so. Well, there's one way to find out. Put the posters up and see what happens. So I would encourage the Young Americans for Freedom to slap them up now. And I know that 9/11 is still, well, 11 days away. Today's the 31st of tomorrow. I guess it'd be 10 days. Yeah, so it's 11 days away. I'd put them up right now and see what happens. And see if the campus allows them to keep them up. If somebody takes them down, will they be arrested for vandalism by the campus police and so on, or not? Find out. So I can't tell you for certain who's telling the truth and who isn't telling the truth. What I can tell you is that the college group made these comments yesterday. The college itself had nothing to say to me for a full 24 hours. Now that the story has gone national and everybody under the sun is talking about this thing, suddenly they're out there offering this spin saying that they didn't do this. There is perhaps a semantic explanation. Melissa Anderson, who's with the college, says that no administrator said any of these things. It may well be that they consider that they're trying to play a word game here and say that this college bias committee doesn't speak for the college. Now, I don't know what power the stupid college bias committee has. Colleges shouldn't have bias committees. There shouldn't be the speech codes that we have in place. We shouldn't be setting up organizations that are set up for the purposes of stopping a snowflake from being offended. We ought to be doing just the opposite. We ought to be having diversity organizations encouraging people to openly express points of view, and if people can't handle it, let them go run back home to mommy and daddy's house, having been raised as such little wusses that they can't be exposed to ideas that they don't like. We're going to move to another story now, but I'm going to transition. The basic suggestion that's at the core of this story is to put up something like this is offensive to somebody who is a Muslim, right? So you can't, in our society, say anything that might offend somebody because they're a member of a religion. Wow. If that were the standard, we better take back 25 years of coverage of the problems that exist in the Catholic Church because it might offend Catholics. Since when, because you're a member of a religion, does it mean that somebody can't comment on problems that they have with your religion? Why is the religion of Islam any more to be protected and sheltered and be immune from criticism than Catholicism, Pentecostalism, the Moonies, or anything else? There's a debate going on both outside and within the Catholic Church right now about the fate of the Pope in the wake of this continuing story that just will never end, apparently, with regard to abuse by Catholic priests, and now in particular, who knew what about Cardinal McCarrick of Washington, D.C. Clearly, there are some people who are offended by all of this, and there are other people who think that it ought to be examined and that the Catholic Church ought to continue to be criticized. I still haven't heard any Catholic say you shouldn't be allowed to say it, but that's what we're getting with regard to anybody who ever offers anything that any Muslim person seems to think is offensive to them. Just because you're a member of a religion, why does that mean that your religion ought to be immune from commentary or criticism? Maybe the commentary or criticism is right, maybe the commentary or criticism is wrong, but why simply because you are a member of one religion, or better put, that religion, is the subject off limits? That's a load of crap. I honestly, really, early on, I think that there were some Catholics who said, oh, terrible, stop covering the priest abuse story. But I think most people understand it's a news story. They're commenting on it, and I think that right now the story is being discussed and debated more within the Catholic Church than even in the outside community. But it's certainly a story. Some will argue that the religion itself should be criticized, and others would say no, that that's completely missing the point. But the point is that both people have a right to say what I just said there. What happens is the media sets itself up as the thought police here to determine that certain speech is allowed and other speech is not allowed. So you bash right-wing conservative Christianity, that's allowed. You bash Roman Catholicism, that's allowed. Goes back and forth. You can't bash the Jewish people depending on who it is that's doing the bashing. Liberals can bash Israel, that's okay. A conservative who bashes Israel, why, that's anti-Semitism. By the way, I'm going to work this in right now before I get to the other story, because it just fit with what I just said. This is really, really good. If you look at the coverage today of the Aretha Franklin, talk about dueling funerals today. Aretha and McCain, I mean, a lefty, they didn't know which way to go, right? Well, I mean, there were different timing, but the Aretha Franklin event, sitting in the front row in order are Bill Clinton, Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, and Louis Farrakhan. And that was from right to left. So in other words, starting on the left was Farrakhan. Sitting next to him is Sharpton, sitting next to him is Jackson, and sitting next to him is Clinton. If you go out and simply go to any of the websites of news organizations and the photos of this funeral, it is amazing how many of these photos crop Sharpton out, crop Farrakhan out. There's a couple of websites that are, MSNBC has a big photo. There on the left is Farrakhan, there in the middle is Jackson, and there on the right is Clinton. That's another one of those examples. I talk about bias in the media. The story's clearly, it's not a fake photo. Is that an accurate photo of that funeral? Yeah. Does it convey truth? Absolutely not, because they take the photo to not have Louis Farrakhan in the photo, because they apparently think it might be bad association to have a vile, hateful anti-Semite who has blamed Jewish people for most of the problems in the world, who hates white people. He's an openly racist, hateful individual who has spewed out some of the most obnoxious things with regard to Jewish people since the Nazis ruled Germany. So this, this doesn't look like the most loving bunch of people here at a funeral if they're going to allow a piece of human garbage like Louis Farrakhan to be there. So in a bunch of websites, they got these photos and Farrakhan's not in it. Now, in fairness, some of the photos you see Farrakhan, so you can see where they were all sitting. So you go out and do a little bit of scouting around on that. They're all over the place, these photos that don't have Farrakhan in it, even though, in order to exclude him, you literally had to crop the photo in the way to make sure that the fourth person sitting in the row is not in there. That'd be like, if they had some...
Louis
Farrakhan. As long as I've been here, they've never done a group shot of the talk show host at WISN. Don't you think there isn't a one of us that would want to do it. But I mean, aren't you amazed they haven't done it? It's never even occurred to them. They should, put Weber out there and then Dan, and whether you crop in the national people like Rush and Sean, I don't know, but the local people, Jay, Dan, Vicky, and myself, as long as I've been here, there's never been a group photo of us. When we had Baldy, the Homer crew, he wasn't in one of those. We didn't have one. Go back to Don Vogel, Larry I've never had to do a group photo with it. Been here 30, it just blows me away. And not that any of us would want to do it. Maybe they just know that we'd all complain. And we are individual shows, but I mean, you can see why the station would want to draw attention to what an incredible lineup that we have right now. And the lineup that we have on the air here right now is the best since I've been here, and I think it's probably as good as any talk radio station in America. We have the two best national shows. In fact, if you go all the way to the next one up, Mark Levin's show is really good too. But in the main hours, you have the two best shows that are out there, and the two most listened to in Rush and Sean. And then locally having Jay, Dan, Vicky, and myself. I mean, I just don't know how you could do any better than that. So I'm actually surprised that they haven't done something like that. So anyway, could you imagine if they had going? They had Vicky sit at the end, and they just put out the three of us on there. Okay, they had Vicky come in for the photo, but then when they put it out and sent out the publicity thing, she's not included. Who would be the one they wouldn't include? You can't. Well, I don't know. I'm just saying. Who's the most embarrassing one? Who's the Louis Farrakhan of our group here? Well, who's the most extreme of it? Who's the most extreme? Is she more extreme than me, or am I more extreme than her? You think she's more extreme than me? If you plotted us out on a spectrum, like Charlie Sykes would be the left of any of us, and then there'd be somebody over to the right. Who do you think is the most liberal of the four of us? Hurry up. We don't have all day. Spit your answers out. What? No, of the four of us. What's the matter with you? Can't you follow me here? The four of you bosses don't clearly can't. I'm talking too fast. Of the four of us local hosts, who's the most liberal? Like I just said, if Charlie Sykes is on the spectrum, he'd be to the left of any of us. So of the four of us, who's the most liberal? You got to plead the fifth. Well, then let's ask Wyatt. He might spit it out.
Remember when you were driving in your car?
It's time for Rapid Traffic.
If you plotted the four of us,
No, I'm not stupid. I am not answering that question.
Well, I'm willing to do it.
Okay, you do it then.
I actually think it's close. That's my point.
I think it's very close.
See, part of it is I don't know. Dan's been on for a shorter period of time, and his show is a little bit more. I'm not going to say Dan's a little bit more, even Jay, more interview-driven than my shows are. For instance, on some issues, you would say I'm more conservative than any of them. On other issues, like, say, immigration, I would probably be the one that would be more liberal than any of them. So that's why you would have to say it in the overall. For instance, I think Paul's more conservative than I am. And I've said that in the past. On some of these issues, you appear to have taken even harder line, and you're barking and screaming more than me. I think on some issues, John is more conservative than me, but on others, maybe I'm more conservative than him. But on a couple of them, I think that you come down even harder than I come down.
Sometimes, yeah. Yeah, so issue by issue, maybe, but I would say you guys, I mean, everybody lines up pretty darn close.
We'd be close. That's what makes this an interesting question. So you're both like just two little sissies. Refusing to answer. What did you say, Paul? Paul says, well, no, doesn't count. You can't count fill-ins? No. No, I mean, what, you want to put that goofball Kittle on there somewhere? Why would you even put him on the graph? put him on the level of, like, we can't figure out why anybody would want to listen to the idiot kind of graph? Is that what you're talking about there? Well, I know, but I don't want to talk about that. That's Paul's guy. I don't want to talk about that. Don't you know why? Yeah, okay. No. So, just of the four of us, so neither, notice, this is why I can just, I'm demonstrating my brilliance here. You know what it is? I'm mocking the two of you for not coming up with the list that I haven't done myself. Why don't the two of you say that? Well, why don't you tell us that yours is? You don't even argue. I got you so on the defensive that, see, if you're not Trump, Trump would have fired that back in my face long before this. Well, what's yours, you big dope? You shoot off your mouth before you have us get fired.
I just have to work with these people all day.
No,
So
I mean, there are some things that Vicky has, over the years, I think, been far more liberal than I'm on. And there are other things that I think she's probably more conservative. Then there's the other thing. There are a couple of issues in which, like trade, it's impossible to determine. I mean, on trade, the free traders are claiming that people like Trump are the ones that have sold out, that to be a conservative, you have to be somebody that is against all tariffs. And if you're a conservative, you do not believe in retaliation. If you're a conservative, you should be happy if a country is dumping products on the United States. That's their position. Other conservatives would say that that's nonsense, that that's not a conservative position. So some things like trade you can't plot all the way around. I was saying all of this just to say, I'll just go back to my point then. By not putting Farrakhan in that photo and cropping him out, they are creating an alternate reality in which they're presenting to people a view of that funeral that was not the accurate one. It really tells you something that Bill Clinton is willing to sit on the same dais as a cretin like Louis Farrakhan, and it also reflects terribly on the people that put on the Aretha Franklin family that she would want to associate with somebody who is an absolutely hateful person. Now, something else happened at the thing. Sharpton, in his eulogy, got up and ripped Trump. And do you know about that, John?
that's classy.
Do you know what he did?
No.
And it was just gratuitous.
No, of course it is. Why would you be talking
Well,
about
because
this
Trump,
at a
it didn't
funeral?
have to, maybe something Trump would have. He made up a reason to rip Trump at the funeral. The president, everybody puts out the little statement when somebody dies,
Right.
and the president said, referring to Aretha Franklin, commented on the fact that she performed at some of his casinos. He said she worked for me.
Right.
Sharpton gets up and she didn't work for anybody. She performed for you, and then rip it. That was not a slight. If you own a venue and somebody comes in and performs and you say that they worked for you, I don't.
And everybody has to know that everything in Trump's world is in relation to how that person relates to him. So that's how he sees people. If you worked at one of his casinos, that's your connection.
But I mean,
that's
that
what
you
he's
do
gonna
that.
highlight.
But I mean, you
of course
then
you're gonna
you
do,
then
you're
do
gonna
work
mention
for.
it. Right.
If he brought me in to host special events or something and give a speech to right wingers, I mean, if Rush Limbaugh came in and hosted an event there, I think you'd say you worked for him. I mean,
It's probably not the thing I would have said.
I actually don't even know that I don't even think there's anything wrong with it.
No,
My
but
point
it's-
is that
yeah, of
it's
course.
not like he did anything to deliberately slight Aretha
No,
Franklin.
of course
so
not.
here the funeral is used, and then everybody's cheering him on. So the funeral of somebody is used to rip Trump.
It's
You
the,
wonder why
Paul-
people are fed up.
It's the Paul Wellstone effect. When it comes to these funerals, they become political no matter what.
Yeah,
Senator
the Wellstone funeral started it.
Senator Wellstone
The
died in a plane crash, and they used that
McCain
to
thing,
rip.
there was clear animosity between he and Trump, so there's going to be a little bit of an undercurrent there. But while Trump wasn't there and certainly would not have been welcome, Pence was there, and Pence. And Pence spoke, and that was fine. But you can see why they're in the case here of the Sharpton thing. This is just Al Sharpton jumping up and taking advantage of a situation here to score political points. So what that's
he's
they're
on
gonna do,
camera.
I'm certainly going to draw attention to the fact that sitting 2 seats away from Sharpton is a racist, anti-Semitic, hateful person, and the fact that Farrakhan's sitting there, that Bill Clinton would associate himself with him. If you had all of the same views of Louis Farrakhan, but you were white, you would not fit anywhere into the mainstream of our society because you would be right there with the Nazis and the Klan. That's what that man's views are. And all you have to do is take a look at his actual commentary, which well goes back over several decades, to be able to demonstrate that. WISN Mark Bellin late afternoon show. The weather forecast, we've got a flash flood advisory, a flash flood watch in effect for the northern part of our listening area, and that's based on where The rain that's forecasted would likely be the heaviest. For tonight, there is a chance of storms developing overnight. It's going to remain mild with a low of 70. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy, a chance for thunderstorms. In fact, that's the forecast essentially for the foreseeable future. Essentially, primarily clouds with a chance for thunderstorms, but rather warm. A high on Saturday of 80. Sunday, same thing with a high of 82. Monday, Labor Day, same thing, high of 83. Tuesday, partly sunny with a chance for thunderstorms, high 84. For those of you doing a little bit of traveling, they're calling for 90s in northern Illinois all weekend. So this system that's moving through is going to have a little bit more of the rain directed toward the northern part and a little bit hotter the farther south that you get. As I mentioned, we had yet another winner in the WIS, in the iHeartRadio Music Festival Flyaway Contest. Ron Crom of Brookfield was listening to me in the 4 o'clock hour. Of this streak we've had of 6 winners in 6 days, 5 of them have been in the 4 o'clock hour and 1 in the 5 o'clock hour, or it might be the other way around. That's what it is. Anyway, I'll give you a word coming up in a few moments. An interesting story to dive into, and I was hinting at it on the margins a few moments ago. Aside from the rightness or the wrongness of the people and the positions that they are taking here, there is remarkable intrigue in this story that's developing over the fate of Pope Francis. The fact of the matter is that without regard to what someone thinks of the Roman Catholic Church, it has been a matter of centuries since a pope really was forced to resign. Some have left because some people thought it was time for them to leave, but the highest levels of the Roman Catholic Church, you have to go back into really earlier eras when there was a lot of palace intrigue and a lot of fights for power to see suggestions that some people are angling to have a pope removed. The story that's going on here has been developing for a couple of weeks, and the background of the story is fascinating. Again, without regard to what side you're on. The former Vatican ambassador to the United States, they call that position the nuncio, who is an archbishop, Vigato, gave an interview to a journalist that was part of a manuscript he's written with regard to his memoirs, in which he indicated that he personally told the incoming new Pope, Pope Francis, back in 13, about the reputation of Cardinal McCarrick of Washington. At the time, McCarrick had had restrictions and sanctions imposed upon him by Pope Benedict, Francis's predecessor. The ambassador, that's the person who's in the United States and based in Washington, he therefore knew all of the reputation of McCarrick, and he says he specifically and personally directly warned Pope Francis, there's a lot of problems with regard to this guy. Pope Benedict has restrictions placed on him. You ought to keep them in place. And that Pope Francis ignored this, lifted restrictions on McCarrick. McCarrick, in fact, became one of the leading American spokespersons for the church, until the most recent stories came out a couple of years ago, in which the allegations of his widespread violations of protocol, having all sorts of seminarians over and sharing their bed with him and so on, came out. The disclosure of this information by the former Vatican ambassador, early in the week of discussing the story, I said this former ambassador was a cardinal. He's not. He's an archbishop. But the disclosure by someone of such a high position within the church that Pope Francis knew about McCarrick and not only did nothing about it, gave him authority back despite knowing this. This is, in all of the abuse stories that we've had with regard to the church and who covered up what, the first time anyone has ever, going back, decades now, tied any of this stuff to the Pope. The Pope himself has chosen, so far, to not comment one way or another on what the former nuncio had to say. So in terms of intrigue, this is quite something. There's also the concern that Catholics have about how to finally repair all of this damage and move forward as a church. and whether or not getting rid of Pope Francis would be something that would be helpful to do that. Underlying this story is the fact that Francis himself, separate to all of this, has been a controversial pope. Undeniably, he has been, on some issues, more liberal than any of his earlier predecessors, and many Catholics have chafed under that. Others love it. Pope Francis has made numerous comments suggesting that the church needs to be more welcoming to gays. He's seemed to make comments about reaching out to people who have been put in specific statuses within the church, such as individuals who are divorced and so on. On the gay question, his famous quote, "Who am I to judge?" He's also spoken on economic issues and been rather critical of capitalism. So there are some Catholics who think that the ideology that he has shared is not good, and there are others who have welcomed this and believe that the Roman Catholic Church needs to modernize its views to accept the reality of who the members of the church actually are and how they're living their lives. And you could certainly, and again, I'm not going to tell anybody what their beliefs ought to be, you could certainly make the case that a church that preaches forgiveness ought to allow somebody, for example, who is divorced to be forgiven. Or you can argue that if you have a teaching of a church that marriage is a sacrament and therefore can't be broken up, that that's valid too. I'm not telling you what anybody ought to think here. What I can tell you is that Pope Francis's views on this have created debate, and some are wondering if the former ambassador, the nuncio, Vigan, by offering these comments, is trying to give ammunition to the American Catholic leaders who would like to see Francis ousted because they think he's too much of a liberal. Quite fascinating stuff. I think it would be less fascinating if this was a debate over the presidency of the Southern Baptist Convention. The Roman Catholic Church among Christian religions is rather unique in having a position like Pope. Catholics believe that the Pope is the successor to Jesus on earth. They believe that there is a specific religious connotation to having that position, as opposed to, say, the head of the Southern Baptist Convention. He's just elected. And they come and they go, and it's not believed to be God himself giving some sort of divine will as to who the person is that would have that position. Catholics believe that St. Peter was the first pope, and there's a line of succession that they trace ever since him, right up to now and including Pope Francis. So given that level of status that the church has, this is a fascinating thing that's going on behind the scenes of the church. How did the story come about, and how did the revelation by the nuncio develop? He did an interview with a writer, and the writer has just written a piece about how all of this came down. The writer said he was asked by the nuncio, Archbishop Vigan. He said, "I really feel as though I have to speak out. Here's my manuscript of my memoirs. You have it. You can do what you want with it now. If you want to ask me about it, fire away." Vigan is saying that he feels as though he has an obligation to only one person, to God. He said, "Look, I'm an old guy. God's going to judge me. Did I stand up for the church in its time of need?" And he believes that revealing this information, hey, Pope Francis knew, that actually is defending the church. It's fascinating stuff, isn't it? And again, I think that the Catholic Church and the leaders of the church are going to have to decide for themselves what's right and what's wrong here. But to have somebody essentially calling out a pope, that's rather powerful stuff. Now, I have a copy of the story that was written by the journalist. It's an Italian blogger. His name is Aldo Maria Valli, who broke this story and did the interview with the former nuncio, Carlo Maria Vigano. And he's laying it out on a website called 1peter5.com. There's talk here of people are fearing for their lives and so on. I'll just tell you that and I'm going to share on the next segment here briefly a segment of this piece and the intrigue that's behind it, and how maybe the ultimate whistleblower of our time, if he's telling the truth. Archbishop Pagano and saying, hey, the Pope knew about this stuff. He's been part of these cover-ups. He knew about McCarrick. How this all came about.
If you have a smart speaker, listening to WISN has never been easier. Just tell Alexa, Google Home, or Siri on HomePod to play 1130 WISN on iHeartRadio. Then sit back and enjoy the excellence.
You have an iPhone. Have you ever told Siri to set the alarm and wake you up? Have you ever used your phone as an alarm clock? I do when I travel. When I use it at home, I bet this thing is 45 years old. Actually, I moved that one into the guest bedroom. That's actually wrong. I still have a little clock radio, though. That's what it is. I bet that's 20 years old. You know why I don't use my phone when I'm at home? I don't want the phone in the bedroom. I don't want it ringing, and I don't want to, people are calling, fine, wait till morning. Well, what if somebody died? Well, they're still going to be dead at 7 in the morning as they were at 3 o'clock in the morning. Do you keep your phone by you when you sleep? I don't. I don't want it there. Well, what if, I just don't. Paul said he thinks his wife sleeps with hers on her pillow. Worse, she's actually holding it. She's actually asleep, and she's laying on her side, and she's holding the phone right there and cuddling with it. That's just, you see these people, they're usually millennials. They're walking around and their heads are always hanging down. They can't even walk down a hallway without working their phone. Well, I don't want to go, I just don't take mine. But when I travel, obviously the phone's with me, and who makes a wake-up call to the hotel anymore? Plus, the clocks they have at hotels are way beyond my pay grade, and figuring out, they're so goofed up. So I have to say, I just have the phone wake me up. I've had the same song wake me up on that phone since I've had the phone. It's Sherry by Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. So, I hear the boop, boop, boop. And I always wake up the first sound of the phone. Then the other thing I do with the phones is I keep them on the other side of the room to force me, especially if I'm traveling, to get up and walk over there and have to put it on snooze. What do you think I do, though? No, I don't let it keep playing and just keep playing the same song, which would drive me crazy. I get up, walk over there, put it on snooze, and walk the phone back over, sitting it next to me. So much for that. All right, here's the word in the iHeartRadio Music Festival Flyaway Contest. The word is Vegas. As I mentioned earlier, we had yet another winner from our program yesterday. It's 6 in a row on my show. Yesterday was Ron Crom of Brookfield. The word is Vegas. Text that to 200-200. Anytime between now and 5. Maybe you'll run the trip to the iHeartRadio Music Festival, which is the 21st and 22nd of September. Round trip airfare to Las Vegas, 2 nights hotel, ground transportation to tickets to the iHeartRadio Music Festival. If you play the contest, you'll get a text confirming entry plus iHeartRadio info. Standard data and message rates apply. I was mentioning this piece written by Aldo Maria Valli, and I want to share it with you here, and then we'll go to break. I swear, this is a great movie. One other point I want to make on this before I get into it. As you know, listeners send me everything. I think it's coincidental. Maybe there's been some direction given. But in Roman Catholic parishes all over southeastern Wisconsin, I think local priests are fed up. Because I've been sent any number. I quoted one of them from Father Hartman, who used to run Waukesha Memorial, and has a couple of the Catholic parishes on the North Shore. Priests are putting into the church bulletins, maybe they're using their homilies as well, but putting into the church bulletins statements of the parishioners in which they're just expressing their anger over this behavior, and anger that it's not stopping. I think that you're finally seeing within priests themselves deep frustration over betrayal by other priests and other leaders of the church. And if anything, that's probably a turning point here in which people, and I completely understand how all of this has happened. It's the same, it's the same reason that we have crime in our society. People have misunderstood mercy and compassion. And I just think from the beginning that the leaders of the church, they believe in forgiveness, they believe in mercy, they believe in compassion. They figure, ball a person out, do this to them, and they'll stop. Don't ruin someone's life. We believe in forgiving sin, just as liberals constantly believe in giving criminals second and third and fourth and fifth chances. The problem with that is that it presumes that somebody who is a bad person is going to stop being bad because you forgave them the first time around. And this is, I think, just haunted the church that they didn't realize that if you've got a pervert, there's a good chance the pervert is going to continue to be a pervert, so you got to get rid of him and stop worrying about all of these other consequences. You could forgive someone, but also take away their responsibility or their ability to continue to commit bad things. And this problem within the church, it's the same problem that existed with Tony Evers not wanting to yank the teacher's license away from the guy from Middleton. This notion, oh, I don't know, it's endemic through life. And it affected the church. And I just don't think it was ever ill-intended. It's just, again, misunderstanding the mistakes that are made when you think that you're being compassionate when in fact you're simply being naive. Anyway, this is written by Aldo Maria Valli. Quote, "Doctor, I need to see you." The tone of the voice is calm, but indicates a note of apprehension. On the phone is Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano, the former nuncio to the United States. I do not hide my surprise. We have met several times at various public convocations, but we can hardly say that we know each other. He explains to me that he is one of my most assiduous readers, who appreciates my coverage and my clarity, often united to irony. I thank him and I ask, "But why do you want to see me?" He responds that he cannot tell me on the phone. "All right then, let's meet up, but where?" Naively, I suggest at my office or at the coffee shop down the street, which is my second office. No, please, as far as possible from the Vatican, far from all indiscreet eyes. By nature, I am not a conspiracy theorist, but I can tell that the Archbishop is seriously worried. "All right, how about at my house for dinner? I warn you that my wife will be there, and also some of my children. At your house will be perfect. Shall I come pick you up?" No, I will come in my car." And so he came. When the Archbishop arrives on a warm summer evening, I see a man who is older than I remembered. He smiles, but immediately one can tell that something is burdening him. He has a weight on his heart. After introducing my wife and children, and after he blessed the meal in order to ease the tension a little bit, we joke about our common roots in Lombardy. He is from Varese, while my family is from Rho. The Archbishop arrived at the agreed-upon hour, not a minute late. In Rome, this is a very rare occurrence. That was my experience when I was in Rome. Nothing's on time. Then Vigano immediately begins to talk. He is worried for the church, afraid that at its highest levels there are persons who do not work to carry the gospel of Jesus to the men and women of our time, but rather intend to create confusion and yield to the logic of the world. Then he begins to talk about his long experience in the Secretariat of State as head of the Vatican City government and as nuncio both in Nigeria and in the United States. He drops many names and speaks of many situations. Even I, who have been a Vatican journalist for more than 20 years, find it hard to follow him at times. But I do not interrupt him because I understand he needs to talk. My impression is that he is a man who is alone and sad because of what he sees happening all around him, but not bitter. In his words, there is never one ugly word directed toward any of the many people he speaks about. The facts speak for themselves. At times he smiles and looks at me as if to say, "What should I do? Is there a way out?" He says he called me because although he does not know me personally, he esteems me above all for the courage and freedom I demonstrate. He adds that my blog is read and appreciated in the sacred palaces, even if not everyone can say so openly. I asked him something about his experience at the government, and he talks about how he succeeded in saving the Vatican's coffers a lot of expenses by enforcing the rules and putting order into the accounts. I comment, "Well, Monsignor, after that clean out, you certainly did not make any friends." He smiles again and responds, "I know, but if I had not done it, I would not have been able to respect myself." He is a man with a profound sense of duty, at least so it seems to me. After just a few minutes, there is a harmony established between us. My wife, who is a catechist at our parish, and my daughters remain literally speechless as they listen to certain stories. I always say, only half joking, that good Catholics should not know how things function in the highest levels of the hierarchy, and this evening's conversation confirms that. However, I do not for a moment regret having invited the Archbishop to my house. I believe that the sorrowful testimony of this man, this elderly servant of the Church, is telling us something of importance, something which, even in the midst of pain and confusion, can help our life of faith. The Archbishop says, quote, "I am 78 years old and I am at the end of my life. The judgment of men does not interest me. The one judgment that counts is that of the good God. He will ask me what I have done for the Church of Christ, and I want to be able to respond to him that I defended her and served her, even to the end." The evening passed in this way. We have the distinct feeling that His Excellency never even noticed what he had on his plate. Between one mouthful and another, he never stopped talking. When I accompanied him to his car, I asked myself, "But in the end, why did you want to see me?" Out of respect for him and because of a lack of confidence, I did not ask him, but before he says goodbye, he says to me, Thank you, we will meet again. Don't call me, I'll contact you. He gets into his car. I'm a journalist, and so in these situations, my first impulse is to go to my computer and write down everything he told me, but I refrain. The Archbishop did not forbid me from writing anything. Actually, he didn't say anything about it. But it is out of the question that he made some revelations to me. So I understand that the encounter was sort of a test. The Archbishop wanted to see if he could trust me. More than a month passes and he calls me again. The request is the same as last time. Can we meet? Yes, of course. Would you like to come to my house again? I warn him that this time one more daughter will be there, my eldest as well as her 2 sons, our grandchildren. It doesn't matter, says Vegano. The important thing is that at a certain point, we have some space to speak together, just the 2 of us. And so His Excellency, the former nuncio to the United States, returned to see us. And this time he seemed a bit less tense. You could tell he was happy to be with this big, somewhat rowdy family. At a certain point, his cell phone rang. A call from the United States. It's his nephew. Oh, sorry, Uncle, I didn't mean to interrupt you. The tension is dissolved. Our 3-year-old grandson buzzes around the Archbishop and calls his Carlo Maria. Vegano is amused, and it seems that for a few moments he forgets his worries. But once again, after saying the meal blessing, the Archbishop is an overflowing river. So many stories, so many situations, so many times. But this time he focuses more on his years in America. He speaks of the McCarrick case, the ex-cardinal known to be guilty of the most serious abuses, and he makes it clear that everybody knew in the United States and the Vatican for a long time, for years, but they covered it up. I ask, truly everybody? With a nod of the head, the Archbishop responds, yes, truly everybody. I want to ask other questions, but it is not as easy to insert myself into the uninterrupted flow of dates, memos, meetings, names. The heart of the matter is that Pope Francis also knew, according to Vegano, and yet he allowed McCarrick to circulate undisturbed, making a joke of the bans imposed upon him by Benedict. Francis knew at least since March of 2013, when Vegano himself, responding to a question asked by the Pope during a face-to-face meeting, told him in the Vatican that there is a large dossier on McCarrick and he needs to read it. With respect to our previous encounter, there is new development on the findings that have emerged from the grand jury investigation in Pennsylvania, and Vegano confirms that the image created by the findings is correct. The sexual abuses constitute a phenomenon more extensive than anyone could imagine, and it is not correct to speak of pedophilia because the overwhelming majority of the cases deal with homosexual priests who go hunting for teenage young men. It is more correct, says the Archbishop, to speak about ephobophilia, if anything. But the main point is that the web of complicity, silence, cover-up, and reciprocal favors extends so far that there are no words to describe it, and it involves everyone at the highest levels, both in America and in Rome. We sit there once again stunned. Because of my work, we had a sense that there was some of this. But for Catholics like us, born and raised in the womb of the Mother Church, it is truly difficult to swallow such a mouthful. My question is thus the most naive of all. Why? The response of the Archbishop freezes my blood. Because the cracks of what Paul VI wrote, from which he said the smoke of Satan would infiltrate the house of God, have become chasms. The devil is working overtime, and to not admit it or to turn our face away from it would be our greatest sin. I realize that we have not yet had a moment to speak alone face to face as the Archbishop had requested. He has spoken in front of everyone. I asked him if he would like to go into another room with me without my wife, daughters, and grandsons, but he says no, it's okay just like this. It is understood that he is content as we are. For us, it is a bit like listening to a grandfather tell us tales of far-off worlds, and we so wish that at a certain point he would say it's all fiction, but instead, the world of which he is speaking is our world. He speaks of our church, he speaks of our supreme pastors. There remains basically only one question. Why is the Archbishop telling us all of this? What does he want from me? This time I ask him, and the response is, he has written a memoir in which he recounts all of the circumstances of which he has spoken, including the meeting of June 23, 2013 with the Pope when he, Vegano, informed Francis about the dossier on McCarrick. And so he says to me, if you will permit me, I would like to give you my memoir, which demonstrates that the Pope knew and that he did not act. And then you, after evaluating it, may decide whether to publish it or not on your blog, which is widely read. I want this to be known. I do not do this with a light heart, but I think it will be the only way left to attempt a change, an authentic conversion. I understand. Will you give it only to me? No, I will give it to another Italian blogger, to one in England, to an American, to a Canadian. Translations will be made into English and Spanish. Also, this time, The Archbishop does not ask me for confidentiality. I understand he trusts me. We therefore agree that at his request we will meet again, and he will give me his memoir. After a few days he calls back, we make arrangements. I cannot say where we met each other because I gave my word. The Archbishop shows up with sunglasses on and a baseball cap. He asks that my first reading of the document be done in his presence right in front of him so that, he says, if something does not convince you, we can discuss it immediately. I read the whole thing. There were 11 pages. He's amazed at how quickly I read it, and he looks at me. Well, I say, it is strong, detailed, well-written, a dramatic picture. He asks, will you publish it? Monsignor, do you realize this is a bomb? What should we do? I entrust it to you. Think about it. Monsignor, do you know what they will say? They will want that you want revenge, that you are full of resentment for having been dismissed from the governorate, among other things, that you are the crow who leaked the Battle Leaks papers. They will say that you are unstable as well as a conservative of the worst kind. I know, but it doesn't matter to me. The one thing that matters to me is to bring the truth to the surface, so that a purification can begin. At the point that we have reached, there is no other way. I am not anguished deep down inside me. I have already made the decision to publish it because I feel that I can trust this man, but I ask myself, what effect will this have on the simplest souls and good Catholics? Is there not the risk of doing more good than evil? I realize I've asked the question aloud, and the Archbishop responds, think it over, make a calm evaluation. We shake hands, he takes off his dark glasses, and we look each other straight in the eye. The fact that he does not force me, that he does not appear anxious to see me publish everything, makes me trust him even more. Is this a maneuver? Is he manipulating me? At home I speak with Serena and the girls. Their advice is always very important to me. What should I do? These are days of questions. I reread the memoir. It is detailed, but of course it is Vigano's version of events. I think readers will understand it. I will propose the Archbishop's version, after which, if anyone has contrary arguments, he will propose other versions. My wife reminds me, but if you publish it, they will think that by the very fact of publishing it, you are on his side. Are you okay with that? Yes, I am. Will they judge me to be biased? Patience. After all, I am biased. When I am a reporter, I report the news, and that's enough. I try to be as aseptic as possible. But in my blog, I am already clearly taking a position, and the readers know well what I think regarding a certain turn the Church has taken in recent years. I call the Archbishop. I tell him my decision. We agree on the date and the hour of the publication. He says that on that same day, at the same hour, the others will publish it as well. He has decided on Sunday, August 26th, that would have been this past Sunday, because the Pope, returning from Dublin, will have had a chance to reply to it by answering questions from journalists on the phone. He tells me that the daily newspaper La Verità has now been added to the list of those who will publish it. He tells me he has already purchased an airplane ticket. He will leave the country. He cannot tell me where he is going. I am not to look for him. His old cell phone number will no longer work. We say goodbye for the last time. And so it happened. Not that the doubts inside me are over. Did I do good? Did I do evil? I continue to ask myself, but I am serene. And I reread the words that Archbishop Vigano wrote at the conclusion of his memoir, quote, let's all pray for the Church and for the Pope, remembering how many times he has asked us to pray for him. Let's all renew our faith in the Church, our mother. I believe in the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. Christ will never abandon his Church. He has generated her in his blood, and he continually reanimates her with his Spirit. Mary, Mother of the Church, pray for us. Mary, Virgin Queen, Mother of the King of Glory, pray for us. That was Aldo Maria Valli's blog posting on how he came about to publish the memoir of Archbishop Vigano, the individual who says Pope Francis knew about McCarrick because he, Vigano, told him. And Francis did nothing about McCarrick, but instead allowed him to move around in positions of power, even after knowing about the horrible behavior of the former Washington Cardinal. Spent a lot of time on that, but that isn't at the highest levels of the Roman Catholic Church. That is a level of intrigue and fascination on a story that, let's be honest, this has been coming to a head in the Catholic Church for 30 years or so. This sex abuse thing and how high the cover-up went, and I think the people in the pews and the leaders of the church themselves are now going to have to decide, now that they know that it did go all the way to the top, what to do about it. Knowing that, can they simply move forward saying, okay, now we know? Or will they demand even more changes? 429 News Talk 1130 WIS.
Cruise up and down this road, up and down this road.
It's time for
rapid traffic.
4394 northbound looking jammed up all the way from Oklahoma Avenue over the high-rise bridge. It's now 20 minutes to get from Layton into downtown, and you continue northbound 43. It's slow pretty much all the way up to Good Hope Road. Downtown to Brown Deer is 22 minutes. Southbound side slow from Capitol back in. It's 28 minutes Brown Deer to downtown. 94 westbound heavy around Miller Park and 84th Street to the county line. 20 minutes downtown to Moreland Road. From the Lynch Buick GMC of West Bend Total Traffic Center, I'm John Wyatt, News Talk.
Standing up for Milwaukee, this is the Mark Belling Late Afternoon Show on News Talk 1130 WISN. Live and learn. What a great saying. Live and learn. One of the things that I've learned over the last several years is that there are way more perverts in our world than I thought. I've wondered whether or not the internet is making people perverted, or if people who had tendencies to perversion are acting out on them because of things they see on the internet, child pornography, and so on. For most of us, though, I think it is eye-opening to now learn. And I think it's largely because people are now more likely to come out and tell when they've been victimized. The number of adults who have a thing for kids. I mean, I think all of us have known that it's there, but we've got stories in almost every walk of life where this sort of thing is happening. There's an update on one of them. It involves Kevin Bulow. And as I mentioned earlier, believe it or not, there are two people in southeastern Wisconsin who teach in Catholic schools who have the exact same name. This is the one who taught in New Berlin and in West Allis, and not somebody involved in another institution farther north. Anyway, Kevin Bulow was charged several days ago in connection with the sexual assault of a student when he was teaching at a Catholic school in West Allis several years ago. For the last several years, he's been teaching at a school in New Berlin, Holy Apostles. There have been no allegations or no criminal charges with regard to anything that's happened there. He was released on $5,000 cash bond after the charges which came down Thursday of last week from that situation involving several years ago. Today in Milwaukee County Circuit Court, Bulow was arrested yesterday and taken back to court today and is now facing a second separate charge of first-degree sexual assault of a child under 13. This is also, according to the criminal complaint, from something that occurred when he was at St. Matthias in West Allis, which a school that he left back in 13. This is normal now, what happens. We saw this with, I'm forgetting his name, the creep from Michigan State. The guy who did the examinations in the gymnast, what's his name? Larry Nassar. We saw in the case of Larry Nassar, who had hundreds of victims. We didn't know about any of them until one or two came forward, and then all of the others. And now in the case of Bulow, after he's facing felony charges on one case, apparently someone else has come forward to the police about a situation that happened to her, and her and her family or whomever came forward to the police, and now he's facing a separate charge. You know, we went back to the segment that I shared in the story that I shared in the last segment about the whistleblower in the Catholic Church who said, hey, I told the Pope, and so on. If I've learned anything in life, it's that the truth will always come out. It's just a matter of how long it takes, and on some stories it seems to be forever. But it is very hard to keep things hushed up. So those people who try to hush things up are making a mistake with the inevitable, and in the long run it probably harms them even greater. I do think this. The problems that you saw in the church, I think, is the same attitude that we have in life. You hear about, say, old Uncle Charlie who's doing bad things over there. Make Uncle Charlie leave town, get rid of it, put it out of sight, out of mind, and you're thinking that you're taking care of the situation. You're only giving the problem to somebody else, and in the case of Bulow, why did he leave the original school and go over to the other? Did somebody say something? Did somebody have a complaint? Hey, you better leave? But they weren't willing to take the next step and go to the police? Don't know. Shirley Abrahamson, Wisconsin State Supreme Court Justice, who is not running for re-election. The whole world is now running to replace her. Ashley Skorowski took out an ad in today's newspaper. She's entering the race. Anyway, Shirley Abrahamson, who is leaving the court as of the middle of next year, not running for re-election, did disclose today that she has cancer. and is undergoing treatment. She says she will not retire. She will stay on the bench through the coming court term. Remember, her term runs to the middle of next year, I think through August 1st, even though she's not running for re-election. She says she will not resign. She will fill out her term, but she is undergoing cancer treatment. All right, we got 9 million other things to start doing on today's program. Seems like I've covered the entire world. It's just one of those days where a lot of things are happening. I've got an update that I'm going to share with you shortly. You may recall a case that went federal about access to athletic facilities in Arrowhead. We've got an update on that story. That's coming a little bit later on, but I want to go first to this. This case is coming from New Jersey. It has to do with, the guy's name is Johnny Bobbitt Jr. I mean, that's a blast from the past. Remember, yeah, well, this is apparently a completely separate situation. Johnny Bobbitt Jr. is a homeless person who made a kind gesture and everybody found out about it, and somebody set up a GoFundMe campaign to help the guy out. I can't say I think GoFundMe is a bad site, but every 3 days there's a story that comes up about GoFundMe, and it's almost never good. I've shared stories about a couple of people who are involved in bad behavior around here who then went on GoFundMe to try to raise money for themselves or on the behalf of people who did bad things. It always blows my mind that people who are cynical and skeptical of everything will automatically believe somebody who goes and creates some sob story and slaps it up on GoFundMe. This is not to say that GoFundMe isn't an excellent way to donate money to a cause that you know about if you know who the organization is that you're giving to. But if it's just some person and it's not a 501c3 and it's... I guess I've seen way too much. Well, anyway, Johnny Bobbitt Jr. is a homeless guy who became a subject of a lot of attention and interview because of some acts of generosity that he was involved in that were covered in the news. So a couple, Kate McClure and Mark D'Amico, set up a GoFundMe page to raise money for the guy. And they went on a couple of programs. They went on Megyn Kelly's TV show and talked about they said that they were touched by the actions of Johnny Bobbitt Jr. Where do you think this story is going? You know it's going somewhere that would lead it to be on my program, right? The homeless, what do you mean he's going to deny the GoFundMe?
This must be really easy to make. Like, I don't like that shit blue, but it's not like it's that bad. I thought it was gonna be darker than this. Oh, you know what? It must have been the fact that I tried to find them. It must have like realized that. It may even be that the original shipping up. Let's just see. Yep, that's fine.
He's going to say it doesn't want. Oh, you're saying that this is a goodness of your heart kind of story. Go in the completely opposite direction. Get to the human beings are the most rotten species on the
I
planet.
thought it stopped
aspect
recording.
of the story.
I thought that was a friend or something. I did not
The
think
people
that
who
was
set it up covet all the money.
the
Johnny
controllers.
Bobbitt Jr., the homeless guy, is
GameCube
going to
controllers.
court demanding that the money be given to him. He says the couple that set up the GoFundMe page are spending all the money and hogging and keeping it themselves. Now, think about this. How many GoFundMes do you think actually have gone to the oh, there's this, and my dog is the ones that I never trust are the ones where the dog needs a surgery. Why do I think the dog's never going to get the surgery, but that person's going to Vegas or something or another? I just don't. As you know, I'm a cynic. I don't have trust issues. You in there? I bet the homeless guy doesn't want the money. He never know. He wants the money. But the couple is accused of taking it, and in fact, the homeless guy got a lawyer to represent him. He went to a court in New Jersey today, and a judge is ordering the couple to hand over the money. Do you know how much they raised? $400,000. $400,000 of the idiots giving money to this, thinking it's going to go to the homeless guy, and the couple had the money. A judge set up a temporary restraining order requiring the couple to turn over the money. Of course, they're going to claim they don't have it anymore. The couple claims they gave Bob at $200,000 of the $400,000. Now, what do you think? If you raised $400,000 for a homeless guy, how much did you have to give him? Oh, Paul says $400,000. That's what I would think. And you know what the couple's thinking? Well, where's our commission? We did a lot of work for you, Johnny. But the lawyer says they're lying to the teeth. They never gave Johnny $200,000. Hey, all he's got is a checking account. If that deposit was made, you'd see it. It's not like, plus they did say that they gave it in the form of a check, and there's been no deposit. Apparently, they did give the guy $75,000. The other $325,000. Well, it's apparently gone. Bobbitt and his lawyers say that the couple has spent the money on all sorts of other things. The couple in their defense says, look, we didn't give it all to Johnny at once. What do you think their excuse is for not giving it all to him? Because no, come on, you just aren't a good liar. I could scam it. All right, let's suppose it's me. Let's suppose I'm a creep. I decide you get down on your luck. Your wife throws you out, you get caught doing something, and suddenly now you're homeless. But you do some nice thing out there when you're homeless, and I say, remember Paul, my idiot producer? He's now homeless. Give money to help Paul get back on his feet, and I get $400,000. Suppose you're homeless because you became an alcoholic, or all the reasons that somebody's homeless. And then it turns out I didn't give you any of the money, or I only gave you a little bit of the money, and I got to come up with an excuse as to why I didn't give you the money. What would I come up with? Nah, it's no good. Here's what they said. We didn't want to give it to Johnny all at once because we know he would have just used it on drugs. Well, that's the reason you don't ever give any money to anybody who's homeless, because all they do is use it on booze and drugs. So they claim, look, we were just going to apportion it out. Bobbitt and his lawyers are saying that's a load of crap. They're spending the money. Beyond that, it's not up to them to decide when he gets the money. They're not his guardian. They haven't been appointed by the court to manage his affairs. They raise the money on his behalf. Now, there's actually an interesting legal story behind this, and that's in the debating in New Jersey. If somebody sets up a GoFundMe account and says they're going to do it for some other purpose, do they have an obligation to do it that way? For instance, let's imagine I say I'm going to do a GoFundMe to raise money for Paul. I didn't set up any agreement or anything on that.
I just need to not get knocked down every 5 minutes.
Gets any of my money. In other words, if
all I
somebody's
need.
stupid enough,
I don't need anything
I see
else
a guy on the street. Hey,
in this
Mark,
game. I don't need to be
down
in
on
a
his luck.
guild.
Give me
I don't
$20 and I'll give it
need
to him.
to.
Does that guy that he's telling me about have entitled to the $20?
I don't need to have a
There was no
house.
deal ever
I
made
just
between
need to
the
be
two of
knocked
them.
down less often. That's all I want.
This is why when you go on these GoFundMes, like I said, they're good for, some existing charitable organizations are working through GoFundMe, hurricane relief. Let's suppose you're a church in a city in South Carolina where there's flooding. And you want to be able to help out, and the church was going to help out people in its community and so on. If the church is a name and it's an established church, well, that's a quick and easy way for somebody sitting here in Wisconsin to get some money down there to help out. And if you know who the church is, you trust the people involved. There was a situation that I gave some money to. I mentioned that one of the trainers that we were using for our horses, his horses were stabled at St. Louis Ray, which had the big giant fire last year. Well, there's a big, huge horse racing effort to raise money for all of the people who were displaced because of the fire at St. Louis Ray Downs. Well, what an easy way to get the money to them. One of the racetracks set up that I know of, set up a GoFundMe, click, 2 clicks, and I got the money was kicked in out there. But if you don't know who it is that's involved, I mean, this is just, we all know that the internet is filled with people that are trying to shake down and extort people from their money. The big red flag on this story to begin with was why. It was, why were these people so hell-bent on helping out old Johnny Bobbitt Jr.? What was in it for them? Well, we now know what was in it for them. So Johnny hires a lawyer and he wants his, what is it about people with the name John Bobbitt? I mean, it's one of those names that if my last name was Bob, and I don't think I'd name my kid John. I mean, it's just not a bad karma there. This is Talk 1130 WISN, Mark Belling, late afternoon show. Out of the Arrowhead story. You may recall this one. It happened last year. In fact, when I say last year, I mean this past school year. This spring, an Arrowhead student was one of several members of the girls' soccer team that was suspended after an underage drinking party. Her parents sued the district in federal court claiming her civil rights were violated. Now, at the time, I said that I thought that was
I'm just gonna
outrageous,
wait
that we
because
can't keep
I don't
weakening the
want to get
authority of
killed.
schools
And
making a
6
federal case out of everything.
stormtroopers pop up
Secondly,
eventually, and that's a lot of experience.
for parents to treat a 4-game
6
soccer
times
suspension for their
3
kid
equals
as something
18.
like this is not a proper way of teaching any kind of
18,000,
responsibility to a kid. Okay,
and
you're
I
kicked
have to
off a
get,
team
what,
for 4 games.
250?
Deal with it. You were caught at an underage drinking party. Pay some consequences for it. This constant need to
250.
shelter kids from
18,
getting the
250.
consequences for their actions
That's like
is one of the reasons that so many of them are
15 times. So
falling
this
apart when
happens
entering
15
into
times.
the real world.
I go
You know how many
through with
kids have been
this.
suspended from
I
school
get it,
sports
or
teams over
less
the last
because I already
30
have some
years?
experience.
Probably, I'd say 5 to 10% of them. Coaches suspend, they bench, they do this. They do have 9 million rules, and maybe they overreact to some of them. In this case, it was underage drinking, and athletes aren't supposed to be able to do that. Well, the parents said not only that, hey, some of the kids got punishment worse than others, and it wasn't fair. Oh, for crying out loud. Well, guess what? That happens too. They took the case into federal court. Federal Judge J.P. Stadmiller threw them out on their keister, saying this isn't a federal issue, this is not a violation of her civil rights. However, he did say you can take this into state court and maybe they can act there and claim that there wasn't due process given to her in their action, but that there's nothing federal about it, and I think that's a good ruling. The Packers will be announcing their cuts over the next 24 hours. They have about 30 guys that they have to release in order to get their roster down. There are all sorts of rumbles and rumors going on in the NFL about guys that are going to be cut and moves that are going to be made. And remember, not only are the Packers cutting players, every other team is cutting as well. And Green Bay, because of the fact that there's only the one cut down date this year. It used to be that I think there were 2 or 3 of them. Then you have the last cuts after the last preseason game. All the cuts come at the same time now. The Packers and every other team take a look at everybody else's cuts. There are numerous players from other teams that are going to be available for a team like Green Bay to go and grab. So it will be a very interesting period here for the Packers, and they've got a decisions to make on a lot of players. I watched a good 2/3 of the game last night because I did want to see the quarterbacks play. I thought Deshaun Kaiser, by and large, looked very good. Don't you? You see it? Did Tim Boyle screw up his chances to make the team? Well, Tim Boyle had a very good first half, and in the second half, he looked, frankly, the rap on him in college was that the guy's an interception machine, that he has absolutely no judgment, that his arm is too strong for his own good. He throws picks. I thought he made terrible decisions, and frankly, I thought he looked awful in the second half. In fairness to him, the players he was playing with in the second half are third and fourth stringers. The receivers that he was trying to throw to, not a single one of them could get open. He was trying to force things and make things happen. It is unlikely he would ever play in an NFL game surrounded by players as lousy as the guys that he was trying to play with. Everybody knows the Packers have no depth in their offensive line. Well, these are linemen who aren't even going to make the team. The receivers he was trying to throw to are all probably on the bubble. Did Boyle blow it, and is he going to be cut? Take your guess. Let's go through a number of key players for the Packers and guess cut or not cut. Tim Boyle, does he make the team or not? What do you say? Paul says no. I'll say, what? Well, I mean, I should clarify, will they be put on the practice squad? You'd have to be cut to be put on the practice squad. I do think that if Tim Boyle is cut, somebody would claim him, so he would be gone. Will Boyle be cut? We're just going to say cut, because they can re-sign anybody who isn't claimed by someone else to the practice squad. So will he be cut or not? Paul says yes. I'll say no. Equanimous St. Brown, the receiver. You say maybe the question will be make the team or not. You say Paul says he will. I'll say no. The other receiver, Yancey. No. Looked to me like a drop machine. Vince Beagle, the linebacker from Wisconsin. Paul says yes. He's as close as you have to an actual bubble player. He's at a position where they don't have anybody who's any good, but he struggled with injuries. I'll lean to yes. Lance Kendrick, the tight end. Paul says no. Maybe we should be asking what we would do. But let's go back the other way. Let's not predict, because we don't know what good it is. Let's start over. Boyle, would you cut him or not? I would keep him. So would I. Same Brown. I cut him. Yancey. Cut. I agree. Jamon Moore. Cut. I keep him. Even though he made another drop. That's a 4th-round pick. Kendrick, the tight end. Cut. I agree. Tanyan, the number 4 tight end. Okay, I'd say keep. We both say keep Tanyan and Kid. We're on the same page on that. Clay Matthews. What? Paul says keep. They do have troubles at linebacker. Here's the thing on this. If you get rid of him, somebody else might cut a guy at the same payroll as Clay Matthews out there that could really help the team in an area of need. Boy, if anybody has a really good offensive lineman that gets cut, I'd be grabbing him up because the Packers' offensive line backups are terrible. Trevor Davis. Keith. Why? What upside? This is third year. Trevor Davis is being kept because of his returning ability.
There we go.
He doesn't. Does he return anything? He had a couple last year. See, I'm trying to keep Cumro and a couple of the other receivers that I do like. I think that they should keep Moore also, and that means other guys have to go. Anybody else? Oh, Kyler Fackrell. Keep. I've seen nothing from him. I'm cutting more. I'll have the Packers down to 44 guys at my rate that I'm going here. Quentin Rollins, safety. How do you keep him? Might be the deepest position on the team. They can move Hawkins over there. They have Josh Jones there. So Paul's going to keep 75 guys. You could never be a general manager. I'm going to have us down to about 47. Anyway, big decisions to be made by the Packers. People have their eyes in the quarterback position and which receivers are kept. I think the receiver position is very, very important. I think that just given the fact that you have Aaron Rodgers as such a weapon back there, Geronimo Allison looked very good. He's now the number 3 receiver on the team, I think. After that, I don't know that anybody has a guaranteed position. I do hope Cumro makes a team. As I said, I think that the guy is a player, and there's got to be a spot for somebody like him. News Talk 1130 WISN, Mark Belling, late afternoon show. There's going to be a Packer cut that's going to shock us, right? I wouldn't be surprised if there's a signing, though, that shocks us that we like, too, that they find somebody on somebody else's cut list. Just the fact that Teddy Bridgewater got traded a couple of days ago. That story's kind of under the shuffle, but I think that's the guy I would have wanted to be the backup here. Now, they did have to give up a number 3 to get him. Where did he go to get them? Yeah, that's right, the Saints. The Saints. Boy, that's a team in a win-now mode there. I mean, look how old the Saints are. I mean, the Saints are even more desperate than the Packers to try to get it one last time. You talk about the window closing on Rodgers. The window is I mean, there's a crack left for Drew Brees. What is he, 70? Doesn't it seem like Drew Brees has been playing football since, you know, Johnny Unitas was running around there? Well, he's been around a long time. How old is Brees? 39? He's right there with Brady then, huh? That's amazing. Both those guys are right around 40. So, I mean, Rodgers says he wants to play 5 or 6 more years. It's not implausible, given the fact that Rodgers at 34, that's ancient for the NFL, but it's not that old for quarterbacks somehow. All right, here's your chance. We've done this now an amazing 6 days in a row, 11 times on my program all told. Since this contest started, and it only started August 6th. That's 11 winners just since August 6th. 22 on WISN all told. We had another winner from my program on yesterday's show. It's the word of the iHeartRadio Mystic Festival Flyaway Contest. The word for this hour is WIN. W-I-N. Just text WIN to 200-200 anytime between now and 6 o'clock. Trip to the iHeartRadio Music Festival Las Vegas, September 21st and 22nd, including round-trip airfare, 2 nights hotel, ground transportation, and tickets to the festival. If you play the contest, you'll get a text confirming entry plus iHeartRadio info. Standard data and message rates apply. This isn't going to stop. There is another lawsuit filed against the city of Milwaukee because of a bad accident that occurred this week with somebody taking a dive because of the streetcar tracks. Guess which law firm is handling it? Well, you know which one. You sent me the story. I mean, you got to give Hupy credit for figuring out that there's going to be a zillion people hurt on the streetcar, because when he got the first lawsuit, he sent out a press release to everybody. The Journal still hasn't reported on any of these. They're just going to pretend it isn't happening. Well, all the TV stations are jumping all over it because Hupy does a very good job of drawing attention to this, and obviously there is a serious story. Two-wheel vehicles are having a terrible time with the streetcar tracks. In this case, we've had a situation involving a woman crossing the street who fell. We had somebody on a bicycle whose narrow tire got caught into the streetcar track. This latest instance, a former police officer from Wauwatosa, his name is John Rivera, was riding his Harley motorcycle. This was Monday night before the Harley event started there. Local people. He was on St. Paul Avenue just west of Water Street. And they were negotiating a curve, and the tire on his motorcycle wiggled and wobbled onto the streetcar track. They both went down, and his wife suffered rather serious injuries, not life-threatening or anything like that, but according to Rivera, his wife Taylor took the brunt of the fall. She sprained her knee in multiple places, bruised her face so badly. In fact, Channel 4 did a story on this. She didn't want to go on camera because she felt she looked so badly. Hupy and Abraham is again the one that is taking over the case. John Rivera said he got some severe road rash. He said the trolley track took a hold of me and we went down. The story reported on Channel 4's website indicates the city of Milwaukee is now posting warning signs on that section of the streetcar track on St. Paul Avenue, and they even have an online video that now is telling people how to safely cross the tracks. Okay, everybody who has to come into Milwaukee, if you're on a two-wheeled vehicle, go onto the city's website and watch a vehicle to indicate how you can safely navigate the street. The problem is, according to the city, that the tracks can only be crossed safely at an exact 90-degree angle. In other words, let's imagine well, you can figure out what I mean by that. What happens is that if you're trying to angle, and when most of us turn our vehicles, we're not making a sharp right or left exact turn. We kind of swoop the turn. We turn like the Nike swoosh kind of turns. And when that happens, when your tire is not at a 90-degree angle, there's a chance that the tire gets wedged into this gap between the track and the street. Now, the fatter the tire, the less likely this is to happen. Two-wheel vehicles are obviously at most risk because they don't have anything else to balance and keep the thing out. A car isn't going to wobble on this, but two-wheel vehicles are. Now, Rivera and the Hupy firm are concerned with all of the motorcyclists in town that none of them are going to be aware of this and that somebody else is going to take a dive. Here's the other thing. We don't know how many people go down and the injury isn't bad enough for them to contact a lawyer. How many people are going down on bikes and motorcycles and banging themselves up, but they figure, well, this isn't a lawyer case, or they think they wouldn't have a case, or they're only being somewhat injured. What's clearly the situation, though, is this is not getting any better. The design of this track is such that if you're not aware, if you're on any type of a two-wheel vehicle and you're not closely paying attention, you're going to go down. Now, maybe as people get more used to it, this won't be a problem, but this guy was a cop riding his motorcycle. I suspect he knows what he's doing. And like I said, trust me, I'm familiar with the tracks. You can see how it would happen. The rut is, I don't know exactly the width of it, but the gap between the track and the street on the one side it's tiny, and the other one, the gap between the inner part of the track and the actual road surface is, I don't know if it's an inch or not, but it's a little wide. So as you turn, your tire can get caught. Now, some motorcycles have big, giant, fat tires. Others do not. But this is a Harley, and boy, speaking of Harley, I need to start counting. Paul, there's a lot of three-wheelers here. Part of it is the three-wheelers got the big pack in the back where you can stick luggage and all of that stuff, but the Harley ridership crowd is aging right in front of us. I mean, there are probably people that have come in here ever since, say, the 90th or the 95th, and they probably have pictures of themselves at each and every one of them. Those beards are getting grayer and those rear ends are getting fatter. Some Harleys are bigger than cars. You put a Harley next to a Smart, I mean, I know who's going to win that battle. Well, plus the guy who's on the Harley probably weighs more than the whole Smart car does. Well, you know, plus, here's the other thing. Let's suppose you're coming in from, say, Missouri. There's only so much pounding a body can take. You kind of need a big, comfortable thing with big tires on there, and plus there's probably some poor woman sitting on the back of the thing hanging on to fatso riding this in the front. Oh, it's just... Everybody who's got a Harley here who's from out of town, though, I'm telling you, this chrome has been shined 85,000 times. Nobody wants to come in here and have the one that, although they got that thing, is it tomorrow or Sunday at the lakefront where they get to ride them in Bradford Beach? Do you know about this? It's going to be like a rally on the sand. I mean, you don't want to be real close to that. That'd be a good one to have a drone. watching. All right, 517 News Talk 1130 WIS.
Everybody likes my rocket. Baby, we'll
It's time for Rapid Traffic.
That's not a
You have any, what?
that's not a public ride. It's a race.
Oh, yeah, I should have said that.
They set up
Right.
a half-mile oval right on the beach, which is really cool.
It's people that know how to know what they're doing. It's not just anybody who gets to go down there.
Right. Yeah, it's really cool though. I mean, it's old school flat track motorcycle racing right on the beach.
Yeah, I've been to, in fact, the racetrack in Springfield, Illinois, where
Yeah,
they
yeah.
big race every year.
Yeah.
You never wanted to sit near the corners, though.
No,
It's amazing how much stuff.
Yeah.
Well, you can imagine. You're all coming around and sand is a great surface, obviously. I'm guessing that they packed it down at least somewhat. You
Yeah.
said that they've actually built a track right onto it then.
Well, I mean, I don't know what I'm sure they treated the beach so that it's, not as loose as normal beach sand would be.
Well,
but
they must have built in a barrier that you can't just go stand right next
right,
to the
yeah.
sea.
I mean, they've got fence around it, yeah. But it looks really cool. And it's little quarter-mile
Do you have
track.
any other Harley story to share on anything you've seen or anything you want to comment on?
I was just going to pass on a lot of bad news about motorcycles right now, but
I mean traffic or what?
yeah, traffic-related incidents.
Oh, there we go.
So yeah, we've got paramotorcycles down on the roundabout south of on Moreland Road, south of I-43. So watch for emergency vehicles there. Also in Waukesha, southbound Highway 59.
On the roundabout.
Yeah, at the roundabout, like at it's called Rock Ridge Road. There, it's where you get to there's some restaurants and the movie theater that
You always have to worry about these tires hitting curbs where you don't
Right.
expect a curb. And that's the other thing with the streetcar, with these platforms that come into the street. When people make turns, especially they're not lit.
Right.
And trust me, I live right by one of them. They're not lit when you go around one of these platforms, and that curb is farther out in the street than your eye would normally indicate.
That one at St. Paul freaked me out the first time I drove past it.
Yeah, and that's why this stuff is happening. People aren't anticipating it, and you could say, well, eventually people are going to get used to it. They're going to know where the thing is, and there's probably some truth to that. But some of these turns are goofy, and where the platforms stick out, you're just not expecting it to be there because you wouldn't think any city would be stupid enough to put concrete right in the middle of the street. Well, that's a coincidence. I was going to make that my first topic. We propose changes in the 401k distribution rules, so we're going to get to that in a second here. Let me introduce the hour. Standing up from Milwaukee, this is the Mark Belling Late Afternoon Show on News Talk 1130 WISN. Yeah, the president did sign an executive order. He's directing the Treasury Department to look into changing the rules, so this isn't the final statement on this. What's it a reference to? I think that this is a potentially very large economic story. It obviously directly affects all the baby boomers who are moving into retirement. But indirectly, I think it's going to have a potential impact on the stock market. It also has a potential impact on the American economy. What's it a reference to? Well, IRAs, 401ks, etc., while they are different products, they're set up as tax breaks. We made the decision several decades ago that in order to encourage Americans to save money for their future, we would allow them to save money through certain vehicles, like an IRA, or in the case of a workplace savings account, or 401k, or this is similar, 403 for nonprofits and so on. If you agreed to save the money, you didn't have to pay taxes on the money. But you had to put the money into the account, and essentially you weren't allowed to touch it without seeing a major penalty. That was the change, that was the quid pro quo on the tax break. And millions and millions and millions of Americans have taken part of these things. In terms of public policy, I think it's a tax break that's a good thing. Well, obviously the government didn't get the money that people are putting into these accounts. Many people now are set up to have secure retirements and don't have to depend entirely on government assistance. The other thing that it did is it created an extra incentive for people to be able to save. Now, you could say it's not the role of the government to set up something to make people to be responsible for themselves, but the fact of the matter is that if we don't, we're going to have to be responsible for everybody who didn't set aside any money for themselves. We all know the problem that's going to be faced with Social Security and Medicare. Even though we're in denial about it, everybody knows they're headed toward bankruptcy, what with all the baby boomers going on to retirement. and with such a smaller group of Generation Xers who will be in their prime income years immediately behind them. We also know that life expectancies are going on forever. People are going to be tapping into Social Security and Medicare forever and ever and ever. So whatever we have to do to adjust that, the pain of that will be mitigated by the fact that there are many, many retirees that saved a lot of money themselves by taking advantage of these programs over the years. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. But the way these laws have been set up, they require people to start taking money out at the age of 70 and a half. For some of you, it sounds like we're talking about ancient history. Well, the problem with that rule is that 70 and a half is not the old 70 and a half. Let me explain. When these programs were set up several decades ago, 70 and a half was was only a few years under the actual average life expectancy. So of course you'd start taking it out at 70 and a half. Why wouldn't you? What's the point of saving for your retirement if you're never going to use the money? So 70 and a half seemed like a reasonable number to expect people to start to withdraw. Why do we put in any kind of a requirement to withdraw? Because the tax break's not permanent. These programs are set up as a way of not avoiding taxes, but to defer them. When you take the money out, that's when you have to pay the taxes. In other words, let's imagine Paul has a 401k, and when he's 70 and a half, in his first year he takes out $4 million of the money that he hasn't. You pay tax on the amount of money that you withdraw. So the government gets some of the money then that it didn't get back when Paul was earning the money. The idea is to require people to take some of it out so that the government has the ability to start collecting the tax on the money that the government was denied all of those years, that people were putting the money into these accounts tax-free. I think almost everybody knows how it works, but let's just use an example. Let's suppose I've got a 401k and I slap $8,000 into it. That's $8,000. That $8,000, I didn't have to pay taxes on that this year because I put it in the 401k, or $3,000 or $500 or $614, whatever it is. You don't have to pay taxes on the government didn't get that money. The idea is that when I retire and I got this big stash here, they're going to make me start taking money out, and that's when I'm taxed on it. Here's the problem, though, and this is where the story is going to have, I think, a significant impact on the economy. There are a lot of people who are 70 years old who don't need the money yet. And they're thinking, I don't want to take it out. It's sitting in here and it's earning money right now for me. I've got it invested in the stock market or the bond market or whatever it is that it's invested in. I don't need it right now, so why should I have to take it out and pay taxes on it? There's been an entire industry set up for what's called rollovers. And again, I realize most of you know this. Suppose I'm 70 years old. That's something I don't have to worry about for 35 years. Suppose I'm 70. Got to take the money out. Well, I got to do something with it now, right? You can leave it in the same mutual funds in the same accounts that it's in. It simply wouldn't be tax protected anymore. But if someone who is in my situation or Paul's situation or John Doe's situation down the street, by having him take that money out, he has to pay money, the taxes to the government that he owes. Suddenly he has less money than he did before he took it out. As an example, let's imagine a person withdraws $20,000 when they're 70 years old from one of these retirement accounts. They're going to have to kick about $5,000 or $6,000 to the government depending on the tax bracket that they're in. So because they took money out, suddenly they only have $14,000 of that $20,000. What's the public policy benefit in making all of these older people poorer? If a number of senior citizens don't need the money, why are we making them take it out? And why are we making them pay taxes on money that they still aren't accessing? If they can make it last until they're 75 or 80 or 85, isn't that a good thing? that they still have their giant next egg when they're 80 and they don't have to rely on government assistance. Your bills get greater the older you get. It's the way it works. And if some people are able to keep this money and allow it to continue to grow and not access it, isn't that a good thing? Secondly, many people have worried what's going to happen to the stock market when baby boomers start withdrawing all of the money that they've been saving all of these years to start living off of. You know, if a person takes $50,000 out of a S&P 500 mutual fund, that's $50,000 taken out of the stock market. Multiply that across the great mass of baby boomers, you've got a lot of sales of stocks that are going on. True, even in the retirement account, they could take the money out of one fund and put it into another, but still, there is some concern here that you're going to see massive withdrawals by baby boomers, and that's going to be money that's going to be drained out of the stock market, which will crater it right at the very time that the Generation Xers are approaching their own retirement. I think people's
just waiting
financial
for these
security
guys to
is premised
respond.
not on their
Boring.
income, but on what they're worth. I think that's how people think of their lives. For
I
example,
don't want to go out though.
let's
I'm too
imagine you
afraid.
haven't saved a lot of money, but you own a house worth $350,000. You know, in the back of your mind, push comes to shove, I can sell the house and now I'm set up for a number of years when I'm older. Now let's imagine you make $75,000 a year, but you've hardly saved anything. That person feels less secure than the person who has that house to sell. So as you're talking about senior citizens and their own spending of money and so on, in a weird way, I think they're likelier to spend if they don't take the money out than if they do. Now, you would say logically, well, if you have to take money out of your 401k when you're 70, chances are you'll spend it. That'll create economic activity. I'm not so sure about that. Because you're ending up with less money because of the tax that you have to pay. If you're able to spend the money without tapping your nest egg, I think you're more confident with your spending. If you're figuring, okay, well, this money that I have that's in the 401k or in my IRA or whatever, I could do all this stuff and still leave that there. I think that that's an economic benefit to that. I think people are likelier to spend. Anyway, it's yet another great thing that Trump is doing. The Treasury Department's going to have to come up with the rule changes, but the president is making it clear to his people that he wants the rules redrafted to allow people to be able to it will either be to require them to take out less than they're required to take out now, or maybe shove back the date. You can even make the case that there shouldn't be a date, in which case you're saying that people never had to pay taxes on that income. Well, so what? Now, yes, you are changing the rules after the fact, and the people who didn't participate now didn't get that giant tax break that all of these other people are going to get. Well, again, so what? Remember, the people that put this money into their retirement accounts, they never got to have that money. It's sitting there. It's never been spent by them. The person who didn't put money into their retirement accounts, they had the benefit of that money that they didn't save. From the perspective of society, and if I had more time, and I always say that, I'd actually like to hear from a few financial advisors on this, but I just don't have time because I'm going to roll to something else. Well, why don't you bring this up on these old people and their money shows or something? No, I mean this exact issue. Finally, I'm past time again, but for people who think that this is all just old person talk, imagine now your parents. Imagine you're 35 years old and your mom and dad is 65, 66, 67 years old. And let's imagine they say, what do you think is an average amount in a 401k for somebody who's 70? Remember that they've had the opportunity to have it grow even after they're 65. Well, no, but what do you think? Just people you know, what do you think? That's a lot. 750, really? Well, I forget, you live in Cedarburg. I live in Milwaukee. If somebody's got 2 pencil sticks in there and a matchbook, they're probably, oh yeah, I'm doing pretty good in the other there. I got $52 in that ECRA. Well, Paul's claiming 750. Let's make it a more modest number for the purposes of this example. Let's imagine you're 35, 37 years old, your parents are both still alive, they're about 65 or 66 and in the retirement account, They have $275,000. Wouldn't you have greater peace of mind if they didn't cap that for 6 years? You want them to be able to last this as long as they can so that they can have a decent life. It's counterintuitive. You would think, well, if they start taking the money out, they now have it, so now they're better off. I don't think that's how we view things. I don't think we view our wealth on the basis of what's in my hand right now. It's what do I have to fall back on? And I think that if we do this, it will actually encourage spending by seniors rather than the other way around. The whole notion is you force them to take the money out, well, they'll buy a house, they'll go on a cruise, they'll do this, that, and the other thing. I really don't think that's the case. Now, obviously, Trump is not saying you can't take the money out. What he wants to do is eliminate the requirement that you start withdrawing it. I believe, and I'm not even sure of this, do you know when the law allows you to start taking it out without a penalty? Is that 65? 59 and a half, Paul said. I didn't even know that. 59 and a half is when you can start taking it out. So, I mean, people can take it, you know, if they save this money and they need it, they can take it out with a penalty starting when they're 60, 62, 64, which they obviously ought to do. It's the reason you save money. Use it when you need it. But if you can make that last longer, here's the next thing. Is it the end of the world that the person dies without ever having capped it and it goes into their estate and that money is transferred down to their heirs? Why are we so hell-bent on having the government get a chunk of this money rather than privately earned wealth that people save be passed along and stay in the private sector economy and add to the net worth and the nest eggs that all of us have? So once again, you know, I bring up some of these things that Trump does in terms of policy. And I'm going to move to a related topic in a moment here. Paul said Obama, first of all, and it's not even a liberal or conservative proposal, other than, you know, it will cost the government tax money because when you take it out, you're paying taxes. There is that component to it. This is the sort of thing that if Clinton had thought of it, he probably would have wanted to do it. The point that I make is these stories like this are so overwhelmed by what he tweeted here and this, that, and he took this shot at McCain and, you know, Dink Al Sharpton takes a shot at him at Aretha Franklin's funeral and so on. I continue to judge the president on this type of stuff. Now, this story might be boring to a lot of people, and for people who haven't saved any money for their retirement, they just hear stories like this and they're jealous that they don't have anything to be able to withdraw. But for the people whose lives are impacted by this, this is a very big deal. And economically, I think there's a significant impact. So the story's out there, it's being reported, it's in the financial press, and you heard it in our business report, and so on. I think that this is a big deal. And do I think Hillary Clinton would have done it? No, I don't think it would have dawned on her. Now, I'm not saying Donald Trump sat back there and figured this thing out on his own, but probably some advisor or someone came to him with this, he thought about it, and he decided to green-light it. It's another good decision that is being made in terms, never mind tweeting and all that, policy, which in the end ought to be what really matters. 11:30 WISN, Mark Belling, late afternoon show. There are just a zillion things to do Labor Day weekend here in southeastern Wisconsin, but we do have rain coming in. Here's the updated forecast on Fox 6's Stephanie Barrichello. Clouds moving in later tonight ahead of rain chances that arrive tomorrow morning. Heavy rain and thunderstorms are continuing into Saturday morning. And then it should dry out for a while with more storms expected Saturday night into Sunday morning and then again on Sunday evening. So it's going to be off and on. Some stormy weather in here with some nice gaps in between. For tonight, increasing clouds and mild, low 70. Tomorrow, as I said, mostly cloudy. There is a chance for thunderstorms, and she says these are going to develop overnight and into tomorrow morning and then come back again tomorrow night. Sunday, mostly cloudy. Again, a chance for thunderstorms. Mostly Sunday night. Monday, Labor Day, mostly cloudy. A chance for thunderstorms, high 82. Tuesday, mostly cloudy, warm, chance for thunderstorms, 84. Wednesday, still warm, mostly cloudy, chance for thunderstorms, high 83. For whatever reason with this weather system, by the way, the heaviest rain might be a little bit to the north of Milwaukee. For whatever reason, this hot front that's moving in, it's especially going to be hot just south of us. Checking the forecast for Chicago for the next 5 or 6 days. I was looking at the Chicago Tribune, actually. They show highs of 90, really, for nearly a week, so a little bit warmer 2 hours south. I wanted to do this as a companion topic in the first segment here of this hour. And we're running behind as usual. I can't help it. I honestly can't help myself. There's too much news. Well, there is. Paul said, well, instead of pointing that out, why don't you get on with it? No, I'm going to slow down even more now. The audience wants me to stay on, don't they? I shared with you the executive order signed by Trump directing the Treasury Department to rewrite the rules with regard to withdrawal from retirement accounts. I want to move now to this story. Some of you remember Bobby Jindal, former governor of Louisiana. He's an establishment Republican, right? He's the kind of Republican that you'd expect to be out there sniping at Trump and, oh, stop tweeting this, that, and the other thing. In fact, just the opposite. He has a column in today's Wall Street Journal explaining why virtually every Republican in America has now come around to Trump's side. That handful of never-Trumpers
I just want
out
to see
there
how
that
many
Charlie
people are
Sykes crowd
blipping
and
right
so
now,
on,
and if it's still up, or
it's
they
a
closed
tiny
it.
fraction of actual Republicans. The media is just perplexed by this, why Republicans, intelligent people, are not turning on Trump. Jindal has an answer. This is good stuff, and again, for those of you who want to find it, it's in today's Wall Street Journal, WSJ.com, Bobby Jindal's column. I'll share it with you. With each new controversy, Donald Trump's opponents plead with Republicans to denounce him. Hasn't Trump broken from GOP orthodoxy on free trade, immigration, and entitlement reform? Not to mention the personal scandals and the never-ending tweets. Why do Republicans hesitate to rebuke him? A shallow answer is politics. Senators Jeff Flake and Bob Corker both tangled with Trump, and it turned out to be political suicide. But to get a deeper answer, it's instructive to examine what Trump hasn't done. Since the campaign, Trump has abandoned many of his previous positions and embraced traditional conservative views, spending and taxes. During the election, Trump promised a $1 trillion infrastructure plan. Some Republicans feared his first initiative on taking office would be a pork-laden spending package reminiscent of Obama's stimulus bill. They also worried he would cut a deal with Democrats to raise taxes. I'm willing to pay more, Trump said in May of 2016, and you know what? The wealthy are willing to pay more. Instead, the reverse happened. There's no infrastructure plan in sight except for the border wall, and Trump signed a sweeping bill to reduce personal and corporate taxes. Court nominees. In 2015, candidate Trump said his sister, a liberal federal judge, would be a phenomenal Supreme Court justice, though he claimed he had been joking. After Justice Antonin Scalia died, Trump decided to release a list of potential replacements. This is a central reason many conservatives voted for him. In appointing Justice Neil Gorsuch, President Trump made good on his promise. Since then, constitutionalists have cheered the quality and sheer quantity of his appointments to all levels of the judiciary. Abortion. In a successful effort to win the Iowa caucus, Senator Ted Cruz attacked Trump's New York values. A Cruz TV ad showed Trump years earlier calling himself pro-choice in every respect. Yet President Trump has reinstated Reagan's Mexico City policy, which prohibits federal funds from going to international groups that provide or promote abortion. Trump is also moving to require a hard division between abortion providers and clinics that take federal Title X funds, which would be a significant hit to Planned Parenthood. Israel. In February of 2016, Trump claimed he would not take sides between Israel and the Palestinians, saying he would be sort of a neutral guy. Senator Marco Rubio labeled this an anti-Israel position. Yet in December of 2016, when the United Nations considered a resolution calling for an end to Israeli settlements, including in East Jerusalem, Trump said it was extremely unfair to all Israelis and pressed the Obama administration to veto it. Then this year, Trump made good on his promise to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital and move the U.S. embassy there. Time and again, he has proved to be a reliable ally for Israel. Guns. In a 2000 book, Trump wrote, "I support the ban on assault weapons and I support a slightly longer waiting period to purchase a gun." After the school shooting in Parkland, Florida earlier this year, President Trump did briefly suggest expanding background checks and raising the age limit to buy certain guns, but he quickly reverted to strong Second Amendment rhetoric while saying that massacres could be prevented by fixing mental health services and arming teachers. Healthcare. In 2015, candidate Trump told 60 Minutes that his plan would provide universal health coverage paid for by the government. "I'm going to take care of everybody," he said. Campaigning in New Hampshire a few months later, he said Medicare could save an unrealistic $300 billion if the government negotiated with drug companies to lower prices. But as President Trump has pursued more conventional Republican policies, such as adding work requirements to Medicaid, expanding short-term insurance plans, and broadening association health plans. Defense. In a 2013 interview, Trump seemingly supported the sequestration cuts to defense spending, only complaining that as a very small percentage of the cuts that should be made, sequestration wasn't big enough. In 2015, he suggested unworkably that by eliminating waste, he could strengthen the military while still reducing spending. Yet in his first address to Congress, he proposed a 10% increase to the Pentagon budget, which he later called historic. It isn't unusual for a politician to change positions. Unsurprisingly, voters tend to be more forgiving of flip-flops when they agree with the final result. This explains why. Trump is forgiven for abandoning Republican orthodoxy on free trade and entitlement reform. Those convictions were always held more by donors than voters. The same is true of support for comprehensive immigration reform. If he were to cross his party on issues like taxes, abortion, or guns, it would be quite another story. But in the meantime, begging Republicans to ditch Trump is a waste of time. Bobby Jindal's column in today's Wall Street Journal, and I think again he figured something out that the media can't figure out. The reason the vast majority of Republicans have not turned on Trump, and that if anything, many who were wary of him have come aboard, is they are finding that on public policy matters, Trump is with them on almost everything. The media and some crybaby conservatives grab one issue like immigration or another issue like trade and tariffs, and they ignore the fact that this is the most conservative president we have had since Reagan on virtually everything else. I'm not going to turn on and criticize a president who I agree with on virtually everything. So what do I care about the tweets? Well, we should stop doing it. He's a bourgeois. Policy-wise, this has been a better presidency than virtually any American Republican or conservative could have hoped for. And even better than some of the early rhetoric of Trump himself. Why is it happening? I do think that Trump realizes, and maybe this wasn't his original plan. Maybe Trump thought, I get in there as president, I'm going to move a little bit to the center, and I'm going to try to reach out and work with the liberals, and so on. Maybe he thought that. Who knows? I think he's realized they don't want to work with him. He may as well stay over here with those of us on the right, because there's nothing he can do that will make lefties happy. So he's not going to move in their direction on anything. Abortion, guns, or anything else. Because they'll never give him any credit for it. News Talk 1130 WISN, Mark Belling, late afternoon show. Earlier this week I commented on the remarkable number of cities and counties in Wisconsin that will have, quote, advisory referendums on the ballot in November dealing with legalizing marijuana in one form or another. I've explained why this is happening. This has nothing to do with marijuana. The notion of having one county like Langley County having an advisory referendum on marijuana is comical. They can't legalize that on their own anyway. It's a statewide issue. So why are these things being put on the ballot? They're being put on the ballot because Democrats are trying to drive turnout in the November election. Turnout will decide Bookmere or Baldwin wins, and will decide whether or not Walker or Evers wins. What do I mean by turnout? Which side gets their people out? The most recent polls that are out in the governor's race show almost nobody undecided. That's why the candidates are obsessed with speaking to their own people, getting their casual supporters out. I don't mean the people who always vote, like myself. I mean the people who, we got out for Walker and the recall, you know, they just don't vote that much, or maybe they'll vote only in the president. Same thing on the lefty side. The Democrats, over the last number of years, have done much better in presidential elections than in off-year elections, because they were able to produce high African-American turnouts in presidential elections, but not in others. So the Democrats are trying to increase the turnout for their people. Thus, the pot referendums. What does this have to do with anything? The people that are just obsessively motivated to get pot legalized, but don't care about much of anything else, the Democrats think that those people are likelier then to vote for Democrats as long as they drag them out. That's what's going on here. And almost every Republican has figured this out. But not the leadership of the state Republican Party. It is, to me, appalling that Waukesha, a Republican community, put this on the ballot, and that the Republican establishment in Waukesha County didn't go to the city council and try to stop it from being put on the ballot. They're sitting there scratching their heads, clueless again, because of lack of leadership from the state office in Madison. The Democrats know what they're doing on this. It's too bad that they weren't as smart in running a government as they are in this political activity. They know exactly what they're doing. Put this thing on as many ballots as they can. Try to get a bunch of potheads to show up and vote and figure, well, the pothead is likely to vote for Tony Evers and Scott Walker. That's what this is all about. Now, I understand the Republican Party could not have lobbied to stop this from going on the ballot in liberal cities. They got no leverage there. But they ought to have been able to get people fired up in Langlade County. How do you let Racine County's county board put county-wide referendums on marijuana on there? How can you not alert the people who are conservative members of the Racine County Board to vote against this? In Fond du Lac County, the local county Republican chairman did mobilize and they kept it off the ballot. But he had to do it on his own. He got nothing from Mark Morgan's operation in Madison. The reason we never get anything from the Republican operation in Madison is, as I've explained many times, they're in Madison. They do not get what is going on here. They're worrying about their stupid egghead internet ads, and they are not understanding that this election isn't going to be driven by internet ads. It's being driven by turnout and grassroots organizing, getting your people out. Well, I told the Republican spokesman I was going to address this on today's program. And I'm going to read to you my question and his response. I sent it to Alex Zimmerman, who's the communications director of the Republican Party of Wisconsin. And as you probably know, I am very, very frustrated with the political consultants and operatives doing work on behalf of Republicans in Wisconsin this year. It goes back to that butchered state Supreme Court race. I think frankly, Kevin Nicholson was badly served by the horrible campaign consultants that worked on behalf of him. And I see this now perhaps affecting Governor Walker's campaign and other campaigns as well. So my question was put to Alex Zimmerman, who's the communications director. Alec, I'm planning a segment on my program today about the failure of the state GOP to do anything to organize Republicans in local communities where pot referendums are proposed to lobby local officials to not put this on the ballot. In Fond du Lac County, the chair of the county party on his own, Ron Bishop, the chair of the county party on his own, led the charge to stop such a referendum.
It shouldn't
He
be
was
on
about
local
the only one in the
referendums.
state. There was zero leadership from the
Local's
ever-slumbering
too
Morgan
specific.
operation. As you
You
know,
gotta
I
make
fed
it
up
a state
with the
issue.
Madison establishment of the state GOP again and again being asleep
Like,
at the switch.
Wouldn't it make
Everyone
more
knows
sense
that
if it was
November
legal
election
or
will decide by which party
illegal
turns out
in the
its
whole
people.
state, then
And
it
everybody
being
knows
legal
that pot
and
referendums
illegal
all
in
over the
other
state are an
in parts of
attempt
the
to boost
state?
Democrat turnout. It was likely impossible
needs to be a
stop
state
liberal
issue.
cities and
Simple
counties
as
from
that.
putting these things on the ballot, but it is astonishing to me that it has happened in more conservative areas like Waukesha, Racine County, and all over the Fox
Because
Valley.
pot is
The
not
state
a
GOP
liberal
has a
issue.
paid staff that is supposed to
Pot is
focus
a
on political
libertarian
issues.
issue.
So does the Democrat
And
Party.
conservatives
But the
and
Democrat
liberals can
leadership
both
has
be
been quietly
libertarians.
pushing these referendums as a turnout juicing
Always been a
strategy,
libertarian issue.
while the Republican operatives
Well, pot is
don't
one
even
thing.
know
You
what's
could
going
smoke pot
on.
all day and you wouldn't really
My
be
on-the-record
affected that much
questions
besides
are,
being a
one,
little loopy.
Why did
Like-
the state GOP organization not oppose these referendums and try to mobilize local opposition to them?
Whereas,
Two, why are state GOP strategists not suggesting a referendum on an
Whereas,
issue that might drive conservative turnout like,
tired.
quote,
I'm not tired.
should
I'm just
Wisconsin cities be able to make themselves sanctuaries for illegal immigrants who commit separate crimes?
but
It's my suggestion. Put that thing on the ballot. People on the ground and in the grassroots know exactly what is going on with these referendums.
know.
I'm
I
convinced the state
forgot what I was
GOP
gonna say.
leadership had no clue about this. Well, Alec
happens a lot
responded
to
by
me
not
because of my
responding.
medication.
Mark, here's a statement on record in response. Local county party organizations and activists are encouraged to engage in local election issues that pertain to their city and
I
county
just don't
boards
think
and
it's that
applaud
big of
Ron
an
Bishop's
issue,
continued
really.
leadership
I
in
think
Fond
if
du Lac
people
and all
want
other
to smoke
grassroots
pot, it's
conservatives
not that big of an
working in their
issue.
communities to promote conservative reforms and stop
pot is
ballot
less
initiatives
harmful
that would
for
harm
you
their
than
communities.
alcohol
In other
is.
words, I don't think they get this at all. They think that this has to do with local communities.
The
You can't
only
legalize
drug
pot at
that's
the local
less-
level. It's an
the-
attempt to
the-
get people
that's
to turn out
less-
in a statewide election. Why do you think these are on the ballot?
The only
in
drug in
November
the
election
world
and
that
not
has
back in
less
April in the spring election
impact
during
on
the Supreme
someone
Court election.
is caffeine.
So putting it on the ballot
And
now,
if you
it is
smoke a
all
little
about
pot
getting
and drink a lot of caffeine,
tired, bored
you're gonna be more
Democrats who
affected by the
otherwise would
caffeine.
not have voted,
but if you
might
have the
get
equal
off their
amount
butt if they
equal
think
amount
they
of
think
both,
they can vote to
yeah,
get
you'd be
their
more
pot
affected by the pot.
legalized.
But
to vote, and figuring that
I mean,
they will
if
get
you
the
smoke the
collateral
same amount of
benefit of those
cigarettes,
people voting for Democratic
it would
candidates in the
it
process.
would probably affect you more than
My
smoking
frustration
pot.
again is that you have interesting things going on in politics, and Republican
Maybe I
paid
should just go for the
operatives
missions. They're more
haven't figured out
interesting.
what they are. And as I
Been
say,
waiting
I
for
just think it's because they're
response.
stuck in Madison. They're blinded there. They're surrounded by all of these other lefties. I have proposed for so long, and I'll do it again, move the state Republican Party offices to Green Bay, Appleton, Waukesha, somewhere like that, and make those people live and work there. And if some staffers don't want to do it, if they quit because they don't want to leave Madison, you're getting rid of the exact type of people you don't want having their hands on Republican
are
policy.
the opposite of sexy. They're
That
ugly.
campaign that was run on behalf of the state Supreme Court candidate who lost,
Oh, this woman's
whose consultant was out there taking a vacation the week before the election, where do you think that company's based? It's based in Madison. If Walker loses, if Baldwin wins, if all of these things happen and it's turnout driven, there's going to be hell to pay, and people are going to wonder how it happened. They're all going to be saying after that, I know if that's what happens, how it will have happened. It will have been because the other side had done a better job of mobilizing their people to turn out and vote, because their operatives for once were doing better work than those on our side. And I'm once again trying to get some Republican leaders, including perhaps people who are on the board of the Wisconsin Republican Party and involved in, say, Governor Walker's campaign, to understand that some of the people that are doing work on behalf of driving turnout this year are blowing this election right in front of us. Like I said, the Democrats come in and they put a pot referendum on the ballot. We'll get a bunch of real turnout. Well, why doesn't my side put a sanctuary city referendum on the ballot? Do the same thing they're doing. As if that'll put an end, by the way, to these referendums. As I've said 9 million times, lefties can't stand it when conservatives use their tactics. They can dish it out, but they cannot take it. News Talk 1130 WISN, Mark Belling, late afternoon show. Let's end the show with this just happened. This story is hilarious.
Oh, the show's going
Gio
on.
Gonzalez, the pitcher for the Washington Nationals, several minutes before the start of tonight's game against the Brewers, was told to switch dugouts. Went into the clubhouse, took off his uniform, and walked over to the Brewer dugout at the National Stadium in Washington. The Brewers apparently have made a waiver trade for Gio Gonzalez, longtime starting pitcher with the Nationals. The deadline to make a waiver deal is today. Waivers means the other team has to cut a player, and anybody can put in a claim for him. Generally speaking, you can only do this with guys that are highly paid that most people wouldn't put in a claim for. Gio's a free agent at the end of the season. So the Brewers are clearly had to give something up. They'll send somebody over to Washington for him, and they'll get Gonzalez for the remainder of the season, which would be 1 month. Chances are Gonzalez will be the starting pitcher for the Brewers on Sunday against the Nationals, the only team he's ever been with, as the Brewers face Max Scherzer. Gonzalez has had a very good career for Washington, but he's had a very bad year this year. The whole Washington pitching staff's been awful this season, which is why they've so underachieved. He's 7-11 with a 4.57 ERA. But for the Brewers' perspective, he's probably a better option in the starting rotation than Junior Guerra or maybe a couple of other people, so they did make the deal. No word on what they had to give up, but the deal was culminated right apparently before the beginning of the game, and the media got word of it when the stirring occurred, when Gonzalez, you can't sit in the other team's dugout once you're on another team, so he went into the clubhouse and apparently is right now in the Brewers clubhouse talking to his agent or whatever. He'll love this. He's a free agent at